Let's break it down now by position. And as Jed just alluded to, there is one quarterback on this list. West Virginia, of course, has a redshirt freshman coming into this program this year as he has awaited his turn. We've got Paul Millard, which is going to be back as he gets ready for his third season here at WVU. And the one quarterback that WVU has signed to this point is Chavis Rawlings, a kid from not that far away in Monessen, Pennsylvania. Dana Holgerson will kind of give us some insight into him a little bit later on. But Rawlings is that one kid, Jed, who physically, athletically, has got great size. And someone would say years ago, they might say this kid has been recruited as an athlete, but he wants to come in. He's been told he's going to give the opportunity to play the quarterback position.
Yeah, when you look at Rawlings, one of the things you're getting, Tony, is a skill set that's kind of unique, and it strays away from what typically you would expect of a Dana Holgerson quarterback. He's not your typical pocket guy. What he is a guy who has made a living in the pocket at certain times. When he decides to throw the football, he's probably more accurate than some people expect. He has more touch than some people expect. He has a decent pocket sense and really stands tall in the face of the pass rush. But he has that gear, that home run gear, and that ability to tuck it when trouble does show itself. And that's really what has made him a different type of football player. But the good thing about it is he's a kid already on campus, so he's going to be in the mix in the spring. You talked about Paul Millard. When you look at that quarterback position, Paul Millard, Ford Childress, of course, Ford was redshirted a year ago, wasn't really in the mix, but he's a kid highly touted out of high school, coming out of Texas, just like Paul Millard was. Those guys will be play a very prominent part of things. See what happens in the spring, but the fact that Rawlings will be in the mix, that's going to be interesting to see what Dana Holgerson and staff do with him and with that unique skill set. He's going to be challenged because he has to be a kid that he can't get cabin fever. When you're that athletic, you have to demonstrate the patience that after that first read burns down, you can't always immediately tuck it and go just because you're so athletic. He's going to have to develop the discipline to stay in there for that second, third read, which is what makes this offense tick, and that's what will be interesting to watch in terms of Mr. Rawlings going forward.
Right. And you mentioned Ford Childress, and he had the opportunity to be here a year ago at this time. He was an early arrival for WVU last January, so he has already gone through a spring, he's gone through a fall, he'll go through another spring this year, so you get a little bit of an extra experience there. So that's the story. One quarterback in this class for the Mountaineers, and it is Chavis Rawlings from not all that far away. You see the other offers that he had, including Tennessee, former Big East member, Cincinnati, all the way down to Pitt, Purdue, and Rutgers. So one QB. Now, let's take a look at the running back position for West Virginia. We do have a couple of familiar names that will be coming back, and Andrew Bowie and Dustin Garrison, just to name a couple. As Sean Alston leaves, Wendell Smallwood out of Wilmington, Delaware, Dreamius Smith out of Wichita, Kansas. Two guys, Jed, when you take a look at them, that are more of a physical, punishing style of a runner.
Yeah, when you look at Smallwood, let's talk about him first. 5'11", but $194, could easily soon be pushing over 200 pounds, as you touched on. That's the body type that you have, that Sean Alston type of production, type of role in this offense. We're also missing Ryan Clark. He was a role player in this system as well. He's graduating. So when you look at these two kids, Smallwood, great acceleration and burst, strength to spin off tackles. You can see in the highlights right here, he really has that ability to accelerate, fight through traffic. He smells the end zone once he does break into that second level. He's a productive football player. For various reasons, played in only 3 games a year ago, but averaged over 8 yards a carry. When you see numbers like that, you know you're getting production. Moving on to Dreamius Smith. Dreamius Smith is a guy that at Butler Community College, which first of all is one of the premier community colleges in the country, but played for Troy Morrell out there. Troy Morrell has done an incredible job out there at Butler Community College. A year ago, played in the national championship game, fell a bit short, but Dreamius Smith, a complete back. He has a home run gear, a deceptive second level gear, but you know he's bringing physicality to the table, packs it in at about 215 pounds. He's a very physical runner, but again, he might surprise some people with his ability, as you see right there, to separate. But he's a complete football player in the sense, a complete running back in the sense that he also is a great blocker. He takes seriously his responsibilities in the pass protection scheme. It really shows on tape that he does that as well. This is a junior college that has had a number of marquee big-name players go through there in recent years. Zach Mettenberger to LSU, Zach Taylor, quarterback Nebraska a handful of years ago. But Rudy Johnson, a running back that a lot of people remember, went on to Auburn from Butler. He played for Troy Morrell. Went on to the Cincinnati Bengals, a lot of years in the NFL, a very, very productive back. When you ask to compare and contrast Dreamius Smith to a guy like Rudy Johnson, who was a great football player, Troy Morrell says, hey, I have to say, in terms of being a complete back, I think Dreamius might be the more complete back, maybe the most complete back that I've coached here.
And a positive note on him is that oftentimes when you get a running back into the program, it takes them a bit as far as their pass protection goes, and Jed made mention of this already. This is a kid that actually likes to pass protect, and that is very, very key. So 2 running backs in the class, and fullback-wise, West Virginia has also made some movement there. Now, Cody Clay did establish himself this past season. Dana Holgerson feels comfortable in using him as a lead blocker, but the Mountaineers also beefing up a little bit at the fullback position.
They sure are. When you look at Elijah Wellman, this is a kid that coming out of Spring Valley High School, great program they've got going down there. He plays the game of football like he's angry. That's the best way to describe him. And we're both very familiar with the high school ranks here in West Virginia, so it's easy when a kid like that steps up to the plate to see him jump out and make a difference. Now, played both sides of the football, projects the fullback here. One of the interesting things about him was he's very comfortable in the backfield. You get that sense in watching tape on him. Very comfortable. But there were a number of times they moved him out into the slot, and he held his own in the slot as well. Very soft hands, but he plays downhill with an incredible level of physicality, and you can never have too many of those types of kids in your system, too many of those types of body types in your system. We touched on Cody Clay. Look at the value Cody Clay immediately brought to the table a year ago. We will find a place for a kid like this in this offense.
All right, so the best of luck to Elijah Wellman, Spring Valley High School. He is signed on the line for West Virginia. Of course, with this offense that West Virginia runs, you can never have enough receivers. Let's take a look overall now position-wise at the receiving class that West Virginia has brought in. You're going to get a combination here of playmakers, guys that can play in that slot position, guys that can also go to the outside, and you see them right there. Mario Elford, DeKeel Shorts, Kevin White, among them White, who we'll get into a little bit later on, is a guy that's got that size that a lot of people covet at 6 feet 4 inches tall. And Jed Elford is a kid that not a lot of people thought was going to be on West Virginia's list.
No, he was leaning toward Arizona. I think the addition of Coach Tony Gibson really helped sway him. That happened with a handful of kids on this list that we're seeing today. That's how the coaching ranks work, Tony. And when you can flip a couple of those types of kids who can be difference makers, what a tremendous program they put together down there at Georgia Military. Mario Alford was a difference maker for them. He's a yards after the catch type kid. He really has that second gear, probably a little more decisive when he has the football in his hands than what people recognize. He'll make that one cut, that one move, he'll plant and he will go. Great ball skills. As I said, he plants and he separates. He has a certain suddenness to him that really jumps out on tape. Short area quickness as well as straight line speed. He's the complete package as a playmaker. He's a very decisive runner. Like I said, a lot of short stuff, yards after the catch by design. He has that wow factor in terms of his acceleration. Spent 2 years at Georgia Military, over 10.4 yards per catch. Honorable mention All-State in high school as a quarterback, so a very versatile athlete. Coach Brian Hill, Clarksburg native, he's on staff down there. That played a role in this as well. He's been handheld in the 40-yard dash when you talk to some of the coaches at a 4.25 40, so that lends some perspective in terms of the playmaking ability and explosion and the burst that you're getting with Mario Alford.
We move from receivers now in this offensive line category for West Virginia. There may be a junior college player that's going to have the immediate opportunity to see significant time, if not potentially start this coming season. And Bill Beedenbow, the Mountaineer offensive line coach, getting a couple of tools for his shed, so to speak.
Yeah, one of the first guys you want to talk about in this unit is a junior college transfer in Stone Underwood. He's going to have every chance to be West Virginia's opening day starter at center. Got to like what you've seen out of him at the junior college ranks in Mississippi. This is a kid, Copia Lincoln Junior College. Coach played for Coach Glenn Davis. I spoke with him over the weekend. He just glows when he talks about this kid. This is a kid who broke one hand as a center. 2 days later, started a football game on a Thursday night, snapping Tony with the other hand. He's a well-rounded kid, comes from a great family, an artistic family. This kid has a great head on his shoulders. Again, a well-rounded, complete football player. He's a kid they tried to cover up quite a bit so he couldn't climb to the second level, so they were seeing a lot of odd front defenses. But he is physical enough to take on that heads-up nose guard, but he's also athletic enough that when you don't cover him and you see an even front defense, and we'll see both, he is athletic enough to climb to that second level and make those plays as well.
All right, and we'll see some highlights of him coming up a little bit later on. Let's go defensively now and take a look at West Virginia's class as far as defensive linemen go. And this is a key area for the Mountaineers. Everyone knows that follows this football program that defensive line was a need area.
Yeah, and when you talk about these two kids on the screen, Tony, let's start with Marvin Gross. First and foremost, sometimes when you're watching tape, it doesn't really jive, or you have to cross-reference it with the numbers that you're seeing. This is a kid, 21 sacks as a senior, 31 sacks as a junior, 42 career tackles for loss. That type of production, sometimes you're a little leery of it. Sometimes those stats can be padded. But you throw in the tape and you start watching it. This kid, Marvin Gross, backs up those numbers. I remember texting, going back and forth with Director of Football Operations Mike Montoro. Do we trust these numbers? And the more tape I watched, I said, yeah, I think we do trust these numbers. Wow factor. He's just a force of nature off the edge. Maybe he can get into the system and develop a little bit, put a little more pounds on, but already a very, very raw talent. And when you're talking about Hyman, the JC kid, he's a kid that when you see him in person, you recognize, hey, this is a man. So he's another kid that you expect to step in, make a difference early on, very productive as a pass rusher as well. Go back to that same theme that we were talking about, playmakers, pass rushers. We're filling a lot of those voids with this class.
And one huge area that really got filled here with this recruiting class is the linebacking core for the Mountaineers. Of course, West Virginia needs the extra talent, plain and simple, at the linebacking position. And here's what the Mountaineers have been able to put together on their list. And you'll see some of the names, and we're going to get some film on these guys a little bit later on as we're joined by the coaches El Rashid Benton, Hodari Christian, Devontae Henry, among others, Brandon Colson, Darian Howard. You take a look and you look as though, Jed, that you're going to get inside backers and outside backers, and that's what they needed.
Yeah, it's a combination of both, Tony, and I'm looking at the list here that I kind of compiled myself when you go from Benton to Golson to Gross to Henry to even Hyman as a D end, as an edge rusher. Hadari Christian, you touched on, Darian Howard. There's a handful of kids who are more of a Sam Backer inside type that just blow things up between the tackle. When you look at Al Rashid Benton, you have him up on the screen. He played both strong outside and some inside. He's explosive, he's disruptive, he has great timing as a blitzer. So don't write these guys off. It's one of the other things. Just because they play on the inside, don't think that they won't play a prominent role in terms of getting pressure from that second level. Isaiah Bruce, a returning guy, he'll be in the mix doing the same thing, spearheading some of these efforts next year. That's the thing to remember. In a 3-4 scheme, that production and that pressure is going to come from the second level. 80% of our, almost 80% of our sacks a year ago, Tony, came from a combination of linebackers and defensive backs. Matter of fact, almost 60% came directly from the linebacking core. And in moving forward, that's exactly the type of thing we're going to have to see more of and even ratchet it up a few notches. And I think we got some kids in the fold here who are going to play a big part in doing that.
Coming up in just a couple of minutes, we're going to be joined by WVU head coach Dana Holgerson. We'll give him the opportunity to kind of give us his philosophy on this class. But lastly, by position, as we've been breaking down this class, let's take a look at defensive backs. That obviously was a key area of need, and the Mountaineers filled the sack up a little bit there.
Yeah, they certainly did. Again, when you look at Malik Greaves, he's another kid. He is on campus, so the fact that he will be in the mix moving forward in the spring, that's definitely a positive. Isaac McDonald, one name comes up time and time again when Isaac McDonald's name comes up. And when Isaac McDonald's name comes up, a name that soon follows, Robert Sands. Obviously, West Virginia fans very familiar with him, as is Isaac McDonald, a kid with a big frame, 6'5", just a little over 200 and some pounds, maybe 205. He can put some weight on and moving forward once he gets into the weight program. But already you see a difference maker. He played at a small school in Florida, so he, out-dwarfed the competition both physically and literally. And you talked about the other defensive back right there. Coming out of Georgia. We have a safety coming out of Georgia who's a playmaker, Jeremy Tyler right there. This is a kid, the best way to describe him, Tony, he is almost like watching tape, almost a brick wall on wheels. He really is. I mean, he flies up and stops things suddenly and immediately, but a tremendous combination of that run support impact in addition to ball skills and an ability to cover ground as a center fielder. So you like what you see out of these mix of safeties that we've got coming in.
And Tyler was a kid that was on the fence 50-50 going into today, and the fence leaned the right way for the Mountaineers. We're inside the Milan Puskar Center here at WVU. Jed Drenning, I'm Tony Caridi. We're going to be with you until 3 o'clock this afternoon. That's when head coach Dana Holgerson will hold his first formal public press conference to talk about this class. We're going to get you a sneak preview of what the coach will say. Head coach Dana Holgerson will join us when we return. The special recruiting presentation on WVUSports.com, a production of the Mountaineer Sports Network, being brought to you by Northeast Natural Energy. We'll be back.
To our state and nation. We know that developing clean-burning natural gas here in West Virginia will lead to our nation's energy independence. We are a West Virginia company committed to protecting our environment and our state. Doing it the right way to bring you domestic natural gas right here in West Virginia. We are Northeast Natural Energy.
Beauty and the Beast returns to the WVU Coliseum.
Gymnastics and wrestling will be competing at the same time.
Admission is only $1.
That's right, just $1.
So mark your calendar.
That's Beauty and the Beast, Sunday,
February 10th, 3 p.m.
When it comes to uncertain financial times, United Bank has a very unique perspective. Seasons may change, but United Bank is always a constant, providing you safety, security, and sound decision-making. That's the reason we've been in business since 1839. Safe, sound, secure. It's the hallmark of our success. United Bank, at your service.
The best college gymnasts in the country are coming to Morgantown.
This year they're unbelievable.
And you can watch them in action. From every high-flying performance to every show-stopping finish.
No deduction there.
Experience it live at the 2013 National Collegiate Women's Gymnastics Championships, Morgantown Regional. April 6th at WVU Coliseum in Morgantown, West Virginia. For tickets, go to ncaa.com/tickets to make a date with champions.
We go to work each day with one desire to support.
We welcome you back to our live presentation on the WVU's National Letter of Intent here from Milan Puskar Stadium. I'm Tony Caridi along with Jed Drenning, and we're joined now by head coach Dana Holgerson. Our first segment we devoted to talking about the 24 players that West Virginia has signed on this recruiting day. And to this point, Dana, a lot of times these are days where coaches are bummed out and they're a little bit disappointed or they're giddy. What is your mood meter right now? Kind of standard, what you thought it was going to be?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, nobody's walking around here with a frown on their face, I think is the biggest thing. So, you know, recruiting is such a long process. I think just the whole point of National Signing Day is to be able to have some closure to recruiting. You spend so much time calling these kids and going and seeing them and spending the money to go see them and reach out to them, and you want to be able to put some closure to it and be able to move on with what you have in place.
When you started to put this class together, obviously this is a significant class. This is an historic class. This is your first full class after playing a season in the Big 12. What were the main themes of what you were trying to accomplish?
Well, starting defensively, we needed outside linebacker type bodies more than anything, which is, those come in a variety of sizes and shapes and speed and all that. But guys that can rush the passer, or guys that can drop into coverage. And if you look at it, we got 4 or 5 guys that we feel like are going to be able to come off the edge and rush the passer, which in third down situations, there may be 4 guys like that on the field. So guys that can get to the passer, and then some safety type bodies that can, also get down into the nickel spots and be able to play some man coverage and stuff. So that was the basis defensively, and I think we accomplished that. Offensively, just needed to get some depth. Got a lot of young guys in the program, but needed to get some depth at the running back spot. Needed to get some depth at the O-line spot, and then go out and find some receivers that can come in and make some immediate impact, which if you look at the guys we got, you took 3 guys from junior colleges at receiver, and I think we accomplished that as well.
Would you say that linebacker spot is the area of most success in this class?
Well, if we're all around here in a few years, we can talk about it then. It just takes some time. But, Tony, we've talked a lot about, one thing that we felt like we needed to do is go out and get some junior college kids. And we got 9 total. So those are guys that you don't sign for the future. Those are guys that you sign for right now. and we needed to have guys that can rush the passer right now, and we needed to have guys that can make plays on offense right now. So I do think we got those guys in here. You know, time will tell if we made the right decisions or not.
Well, Coach, let's talk defensively again. Let's emphasize on some of those pass rushers you had coming in. A year ago, this secondary at West Virginia was forced to face 3 4,000-yard passers, a Heisman finalist, top 3 Heisman finalist in Colin Klein, the 3rd-ranked passer in the history of college football. It was a daunting task our first year in the Big 12. The path of least resistance in offering help to a young secondary is getting pressure on that passer. So when you throw enough mud at a wall, you hope some stick. Out of that group of 4 or 5, it's difficult to project, but try and do so. How many do you think this time come September might be on the field trying to make plays for us?
Well, I'd say each and every one of them. You know, I mean, especially the junior college guys. You got Brandon Golston, you got Devontae Henry, you know, you got Dontrell Hyman. Those are guys that's what they did, is they rushed the passer. You get a guy like Jeremy Tyler, who from a nickel standpoint, coverage, but to rush the passer on some specific blitzes and stuff. So I feel like we accomplished that. You know, everybody was like, you know, Coach, can't wait to see your recruiting class to see how many corners you can sign, because our pass defense wasn't very good. Well, I don't care how good those corners are, especially when you're dealing with a bunch of corners that just were very young. Yeah. You know, those guys need a chance to be able to improve and get better, and we fully expect them to. Don't forget we signed Vernon Davis last year as a transfer who sat out all year. So we have 8 corners on scholarship. We feel good about all of them. Brian Mitchell is going to come in and be very, very technical with these guys and get them better. But we're still not going to be successful if we don't have guys that can rush the passer from the outside linebacker standpoint.
Along that line, you mentioned Brian Mitchell, new addition to the staff. Tony Gibson is back. He's going to be handling the safeties. Give us your thought as to those moves and how it will help this defense.
Well, they'll be able to specialize in some specific things defensively. Brian was a coordinator at this level that was coaching the 3-4 defense. You know, Tony Gibson was with Coach Patterson up at Pitt for a year. Was able to use his recruiting contacts to already get us a couple of players, and we'll do a great job in Pennsylvania. But more importantly than that, once we put recruiting to rest today, we'll start coaching, you know, and Coach Gibson's going to understand what Coach Patterson wants from a secondary standpoint. And then my experiences with Brian Mitchell, there's not going to be a better guy in the country that knows how to technically coach up our corners, because he played it for 4 years at this level. He played it for 4 years with the Atlanta Falcons. He's been coaching those guys for a long time, some of which was with me at Texas Tech. So we're in great shape with that, and looking forward to getting better here through the rest of the spring.
Jumping over from the defensive side to the offensive side, quarterback-wise, obviously you've been known through the years to have a few of those. Just one in this class. What were your thoughts there?
Well, feel good about the 2 guys we got coming back. You know, Paul's been taking a bunch of snaps and getting better, and then Ford is just a young, raw guy that's got tremendous upside. So, you know, got 2 good ones. Wanted to bring in somebody a little bit different than what we already had. These guys are just pocket guys. You know, we know that. And then, you know, having Chavis be able to come in to bring some versatility to both that position, from some athleticism. As a local kid that wanted to be a Mountaineer really bad, so we said, you're going to be our only quarterback that's going to be in this class. So feel good about those guys, you know, and you know, who's going to, how the spring's going to play out, who knows. You know, it may take all spring, all summer, and some into camp before we figure out who's going to be the guy.
Now, we talk a lot, Coach, about, you know, numbers being dictated by need. I mean, when you look at some of the different classes throughout the course of the Big 12, you haven't looked at that, but I've glanced at it coming in. And, for instance, Texas, only 15 or so kids expected. Of course, they've returned 19 starters. We're in a different place than a program like that. Right. On the offensive side of the ball, sticking to that side, let's talk about some of those needs. You hit on the running back position, the O-line positions, on the perimeter. Let's talk about some of those needs that have been met, because you've had a nice mix of both high school kids and junior college kids in those 3 areas.
Right. You know, running back-wise, you know, we got our leading rusher coming back from the previous 2 years. I mean, those guys are going to be juniors, and they're going to be a lot better, but we still need depth. If we figured out one thing last year and in the Big 12 and at this level, you need a whole bunch of running backs out there now, and feel really good about Jeremy Smith. He was possibly the top junior college running back that was available. You know, Wendell Smallwood's a guy that's got tremendous upside. Both those guys are here on campus and going through drills, and they look fantastic. So they're going to add to what we already have. You know, from a receiver standpoint, again, we're losing all our production. You know, we got to get some guys in here that can make some plays. And if you look at some of the guys that are on the sheet right here are coming in, Kevin White's already here. DeKeel Schwartz is already here. They're two really good-looking, thick kids that can physically do some good things for us. And then you're adding Mario Alford, who's a dynamic playmaker. Ronald Carswell, who's another guy that's a playmaker. You're getting some guys that you put the ball in their hands, they're able to go make some things happen. From an O-line standpoint, you just got to keep getting depth every year. I mean, you're playing 5, at all times. You're trying to have 8 guys ready to play it. We obviously lost a lot of the inside guys, but we need young guys to continue to develop, and then you better keep replenishing that position every year.
30 seconds before we're going to take a break here. Just give us an overall feel. You've moved the weight room. The reconstruction and remodel is underway here at the stadium. You've moved the weight room to the indoor practice facility. What's the theme? What's the philosophy of off-season conditioning? How's it going so far?
It's going good. It's functional up there right now. There's a part of us that wishes that was our full-time home for a weight room, just because we're getting so much work done up there. We've been back all week, and there's no taking any time off right now. The signing class is over, but we're moving on to 2014 recruiting. But more importantly, we're going to be spending a lot of time with our current team. Recruiting gets everybody excited and everything, but it's all about player development. We need to make sure that we're focusing on the guys that we have on campus right now to get them better every day. And they've been doing a great job up there in the weight room and doing a lot of the drills and stuff and doing a lot of voluntary 7-on-7. So got a long ways to go, but I like their attitude right now.
Very good. Dana, thanks for being with us. About another 90 minutes from now, you get to address the full media. We'll hear from you then as well. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
WVU's Dana Holgerson. We invite you to stay tuned. More from here inside the Milan Puskar Center. We've got assistant coaches still to come as we continue to detail WVU's class. Today's broadcast being brought to you by Northeast Natural Energy. We'll be back.
We go to work each day with one desire: to supply clean, affordable energy to our state and nation. We know that developing clean burning natural gas here in West Virginia will lead to our nation's energy independence. We are a West Virginia company committed to protecting our environment and our state, doing it the right way to bring you domestic natural gas right here in West Virginia. We are Northeast Natural Energy.
Beauty and the Beast returns to the WVU Coliseum.
Gymnastics and wrestling will be competing at the same time.
Admission is only $1.
That's right, just $1.
So mark your calendar.
That's Beauty and the Beast, Sunday,
February 10th, 3 p.m.
When it comes to uncertain financial times, United Bank has a very unique perspective. Seasons may change, but United Bank is always a constant, providing you safety, security, and sound decision-making. That's the reason we've been in business since 1839. Safe, sound, secure. It's the hallmark of our success. United Bank, at your service.
The best college gymnasts in the country are coming to Morgantown.
This year they're unbelievable.
And you can watch them in action. From every high-flying performance to every show-stopping finish.
No deduction there.
Experience it live at the 2013 National Collegiate Women's Gymnastics Championships, Morgantown Regional. April 6th at WVU Coliseum in Morgantown, West Virginia. For tickets, go to ncaa.com/tickets to make a date with champions.
Welcome back to our special live web stream broadcast at WVUsports.com, West Virginia's National Letter of Intent Signing Day. I'm Tony Caridi along with Jed Drenning. Coming up in just a little bit, we'll be joined by WVU offensive line coach Bill Bedenbow and WVU running backs coach Robert Gillespie. Before we are joined by those guys, what do you say we take a look here at the players that are already in and enrolled and on campus and going through off-season conditioning. There's the list of those that have enrolled since the winter semester got underway. Hadari Christian, Malik Greaves, Chavis Rawlings, Dakeil Shorts, Wendell Smallwood, Dreamia Smith, and Kevin White. Let's start at the bottom of that list with Kevin White. We had mentioned that he is a big physical receiver, both literally and figuratively, 6 feet, 4 inches tall, and he has become what you could call a YouTube viral hit with his ability to show how high he can literally jump into the air.
Standing box jump, and you got to figure, Tony, this almost gives him an unfair advantage. You talked about his frame mismatch for a lot of these undersized corners. By undersized, I mean 5'10" to 6 foot, facing a kid that's 6'3", 6'4", 200+ pounds with an incredible leaping ability. And when you talk to his coach up there, this translates into incredible production and incredible play on the football field. This is a school that played host to the career of a wide receiver who's now a starter in Donald Jones for the Buffalo Bills, yet his coach has said, hey, it wasn't Donald Jones, it was in fact, and here you see him taking that leap, 50+ inches, standing jump, incredible athletic ability, but according to his coach, not Donald Jones, but this kid is the best receiver to have played at Lackawanna Junior College. So you got to figure a more polished product because of the junior college experience. So he is a kid that you think can step right in. He's on campus, insert himself, parachute into things right in the spring ball, and maybe be a difference maker right out of the gate.
All right, another guy who could be a difference maker here for the Mountaineers at that receiver spot is Ronald Carswell. He initially signed to come in January, did not make it, has re-signed today, so he'll be coming in once school is complete here, once he gets his house in order. And this is a kid that began his campaign as a college player at Alabama, and I know you talked to the folks there at his junior college, and they say he is not a work in progress. He's ready to go.
Yeah, when you talk to Coach Joe Williams at Itawamba Community College, they place tremendous emphasis on not just getting these kids offers, but getting these kids offers early enough to have them ready to rock and roll and make an impact at the Division I level. This is a guy in Ronald Carswell. He started his career as a gray shirt at Alabama. So Joe Williams says, hey, I'd like to take credit for him as a technician, but he already arrived here as a polished receiver from Nick Saban's staff at Alabama. So he was already ready when he got here. Put him into a system that is almost identical to the air raid offense that we have with Coach Holgerson here. That's what Joe Williams runs down there. Runs a consistent 4-4. Same system offensively as WVU's. He, because of his speed and because of the fact they wanted to get touches and get him the football in his hands, their system, you put him at the slot. Wanted to give the slot a lot of touches, that's where Carswell played. But he does have that vertical ability to translate into being an outside player at this level. But he's a very polished player, great route runner. He's already fast with a consistent 4-4, but because of his precision in terms of route running, that makes him play even faster than he otherwise would. So a guy that can jump in and you think make a difference right away in Ronald Carswell.
All right, very good. And he had some very positive things to say about coming to WVU. Quoting him, I got a feel for the staff and the team. I got a great feel for them based on the things the players told me about the staff and the university. It just felt like it was a place I needed to be, and I would be a fool not to go there. So Ronald Carswell will be coming to WVU. Continuing on offensively, we've kind of given an overview, and Dana Holgerson said, you know, obviously we needed some receivers, we needed that running back position, and he said to us there just a few moments ago, you can never have enough offensive linemen.
You can't, Tony, and we have signed 4 of those guys in this class. We've talked a lot about Stone Underwood. He's a guy that you expect to come in and make a difference right away. But then you have a handful of other kids. Let's circle back to Stone Underwood. Again, a guy that comes from a very, very smart family. He was brought up with a good head on his shoulders. He's a well-rounded kid. He's made all the calls down there for those guys. A physical presence, athletic enough to climb to the second level and blast those linebackers and defensive backs, but smart, physical enough to take on a heads-up nose. And one of the things from a scheme standpoint, not to get too technical, Tony, but in the Big 12, because of these offenses that like to spread you out and play pitch and catch and throw the football so many times, you do see a lot of these odd front schemes, so you are going to have times when that center faces that heads-up nose guard. So he has the ability, heads up, not heads up, even front, odd front. He's versatile enough to get that done. But I keep doubling back to that same story. I love that story. Broke his hand as a right-handed center on a Tuesday. Thursday night, they had a football game. This has already made its way across the Twitterverse. I tweeted it out. Now he's a legend, he said. But broke his right hand on a Tuesday. Thursday night, snapped and started and played a complete game with his left hand, and then the next 2 or 3 games snapped left-handed. Why? Because he got in position to do that. He was still their best option at center as a left-handed center instead of a right-handed guy. 2 or 3 games doing that until he returned back to the main lineup. But you have Marcel Lazard, another kid. He's a big-bodied kid coming out of New Jersey from a great program. He's a man among boys up there. Great player, great person. You had his coach on your show. He had rave reviews about this kid. Again, a big frame. And one thing I like about seeing these guys, these big-bodied guys in this group, Tony, the one parallel or the one commonality that seems to string these kids together, they all have pretty good feet. And as you can watch on tape here, he has that ability to punch and sustain, get some drive, move around. Moving on to Grant Lingefelter. This Grant Lingefelter is yet another kid coming out of Ohio. Lingefelter is a kid who played a lot of tackle, but the type of feat you would expect out of an interior offensive lineman. They pulled him a lot from the tackle position, that old counter trade, Joe Gibbs, Washington Redskins style, and when he pulls from that tackle position or the guard position, he's a heat seeker. You see him peel the edge, climb to the second level, again, athletic enough to engage those defensive backs at the second level. You see him here in pass pro, know what you're getting there, locks onto people, they don't get away. I like any time I watch an offensive lineman, when the defensive lineman is pushing in and yet finds a way to hit the ground, that's kind of telling you, hey, maybe sometimes you're getting away with using your hands. You are a master at that technique now. That's how you get good. And that's the type of kid in Grant Lingefelter that has done that for a number of years now in high school, and that's going to project well to West Virginia. And finally, closing out these offensive linemen, Tyler Tezino, out of Texas, out of Houston. Tezino. There we go. Tezino. Might not get the name right, but you'll love this kid's tape, okay? I talked to his coach over the weekend. This is a kid, used to be a wrestler, very wide wingspan. Wide wingspan, and he translates that into incredible leverage, okay? Because one of 2 things happen with long-armed offensive linemen. That wide wingspan might cost you in terms of your measurables on paper. You might not throw up that bench like a lot of people like to see. That might not blow up people's skirt. But the truth of the matter is, you can use that wingspan instead of a heavy bench. You can use it to leverage people, and he did a great job of doing that, especially as a former wrestler. But the thing about this kid, Tony, and again, it's very impressive when you see the matrix behind how this award went. The Houston Touchdown Club Player of the Year Award. He was a runner-up in that award. And that's not a media award. That's not a popularity contest. That's an award in which local Houston high school coaches on a weekly basis break down and evaluate game tape. And week by week, they narrow it down. They eliminate kids. He was a finalist and the first ever finalist for that award. So it speaks volumes to the type of kid you're getting when those in that part of the country who know best hold him in such high esteem.
Certainly at that position. When you're an offensive lineman, it's almost non-existent to get any of those types of accolades when you're involved with all the other skill-type positions. We invite you to stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to start our interviews with members of the WVU assistant coaching staff. We've got Robert Gillespie and Bill Biedenbow on deck. And we'll be with you until, well, after 3 o'clock today. Bill Biedenbow will join us, and Coach Gillespie will be with us. And still to come at 3 o'clock, the official press conference from here inside the team room of Dana Holgerson. Stay with us. More to come as you watch this special presentation on WVUsports.com. It's all brought to you by Northeast Natural Energy.
We go to work each day with one desire: to supply clean, affordable energy to our state and nation. We know that developing clean burning natural gas here in West Virginia will lead to our nation's energy independence. We are a West Virginia company committed to protecting our environment and our state, doing it the right way to bring you domestic natural gas right here in West Virginia. We are Northeast Natural Energy.
Beauty and the Beast returns to the WVU Coliseum.
Gymnastics and wrestling will be competing at the same time.
Admission is only $1.
That's right, just $1.
So mark your calendar.
That's Beauty and the Beast, Sunday,
February 10th, 3 p.m.
When it comes to uncertain financial times, United Bank has a very unique perspective. Seasons may change, but United Bank is always a constant, providing you safety, security, and sound decision-making. That's the reason we've been in business since 1839. Safe, sound, secure. It's the hallmark of our success. United Bank, at your service.
The best college gymnasts in the country are coming to Morgantown.
This year they're unbelievable.
And you can watch them in action. From every high-flying performance to every show-stopping finish.
No deduction there.
Experience it live at the 2013 National Collegiate Women's Gymnastics Championships, Morgantown Regional. April 6th at WVU Coliseum in Morgantown, West Virginia. For tickets, go to ncaa.com/tickets to make a date with champions.
On WVUSports.com, we welcome you back in. National Letter of Intent Signing Day 2013. It's all presented to you by Northeast Natural Energy, back inside Milan Puskar Center. I'm Tony Caridi along with Jed Drenning. We're joined now by WVU running backs coach Robert Gillespie. Robert, thanks so much for being with us. This is a day of relief for you.
It is. I tell you what, tonight will be the first good night of sleep that we have for a while, but after tonight, it all starts again for 2014. So, but it's a great day. It's always an exciting day to see where the future of your program is headed.
We're going to spend some time with you talking about the kids that are already here that we know about, the kids that have been signed to play running back, and some kids outside of your position that you were personally involved in their recruitment. Let's start off, before we talk about the new guys, with the kids that we know a lot about. And first and foremost, Dustin Garrison and Andrew Bowie. Bring us up to date since the last time we saw them. How has their off-season conditioning been?
It's going great. You know, I'm fortunate to have two guys that have played a lot of football games here. You know, those guys bring a lot of experience and knowledge to the two new guys that have already started school here. So those guys so far have been working really hard. Dustin is getting better and better each day as he gets further and further away from his injury. And Andrew Bowie has become a vocal leader. You know, a guy that's able to have a voice now when guys are working out and guys are lifting and watching film. So it's great to have those two guys back to add to the new guys that are coming in.
You brought Dustin back very gradually this past season because you guys didn't want to extend and by chance re-injure that knee. Do you think he is at 100% physically, mentally right now?
I think he is. You know, I think we did a good job as a coaching staff and as a medical staff to just do the right thing for the kid and just bring him back slowly rather than throw him out there into the fire. But I think right now he's in great spirits, working hard. You know, he's not wearing a brace anymore. So, you know, this spring is going to be huge for him.
What's the next step in their evolution as running backs, both of those guys? What are you telling them? Okay, you've done this, you've played for a couple of years, now this is what you need to do.
You know, just be able to do everything a little bit faster. You know, I think the more you spend time in this offense, you get more familiar with it. And like I said, these guys have had a lot of reps, you know, good and bad reps. And I think that's going to help them in the future. And this spring will be pivotal for their advancement as a group. And adding two more players also makes those guys work harder. You know, competition is going to be the biggest thing that we're going to have for the first time in a long time. You know, we're going to have some guys come in and compete with those guys to help them get better.
Now, from a production standpoint, Coach, don't look now that both these guys, in talking about Bowie and Garrison, are about to be juniors. I don't know where the time goes, but they're about to be juniors, and not a lot of teams out there have two kids, each of which have a 200-yard rushing effort on their resume heading into a season. 2 years ago, Bowling Green, 291 by Dustin. A year ago, obviously, the big game by Andrew Bowie at Texas. So that's what you have to start with. But from a body type standpoint, looking at these recruits, Smallwood, Drenia Smith, Wellman, different body types in the mix as well. It's always great to foster that competition that you touched on, but there's different roles met by different kids in terms of body type too, right?
Well, you're right. You know, in this class, we wanted to go out and get two different kind of backs. Losing a guy like we had in Sean Austin, you know, we wanted to go get a bigger guy, and we feel like Drenia Smith is a guy that can do it all. I mean, he's a 215-pound back, 5'11", catches the ball well, downhill runner, can make you miss. It was a great addition as far as having an older guy to come in and compete with these two guys that are juniors. So it's great to add him. He's been doing a great job lifting weights, working out and training, so he's a great addition. And also to add a guy like Wendell Smallwood. Competed at a very high level, played with some really good football players. And he's a kid that's 5'11", 195 pounds. It's going to be a bigger guy also. So, you know, it's just great to add different backs into the fold this year.
Which of those players that you just mentioned remind you of you when you were running back?
No, you know what? I get that question all the time from Coach Hogerson and our recruiting coordinators. Are you signing this guy because he's like you? And I tell you what, somehow I fooled Steve Spurrier into signing me at Florida. But these guys are all different. Hopefully these guys have better football careers than I did.
And speaking about your career at Florida, obviously you have quite a pathway down to that portion of the country and recruiting that corridor. Let's talk about a couple of the kids from that neck of the woods. Before we came on the air, I was talking to you about McDonald and the name that always surfaces anytime you mention his name. Talk to us about the process of recruiting Isaac McDonald.
Well, I'll tell you what, oftentimes the best recruiters that you have are former players. You know, and Isaac McDonald grew up being a fan of Robert Sands. You know, I think he heard the comparison so many times about, you know, the big, tall safeties, and Robert Sands was a guy that he kind of patterned his game after. So it was a no-brainer for him to see himself being a Mountaineer one day. And we've always had a really good relationship with him starting his, the end of his sophomore year. He started to reach out to us. And so he's a great addition. We're just excited to see what kind of athlete and what his body turns into.
And sticking to that area of the country, Tony, Jeremy Tyler.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jeremy Tyler was a kid that we were fortunate that he reached out to us. You know, he reached out and said, hey, you know, West Virginia is a school that I've always liked. Would you guys recruit us? So we put the film on, and we were amazed that a kid like this is still out there, and he wanted to be recruited so late in the process. And, really good football player, plays at a high level, competes in one of the best schools in Atlanta, Georgia. You know, so we were excited that kid wanted to give us a shot, and his attitude when he came on his visit was a very mature kid, very focused kid, and we think with the type of offenses that we face in the Big 12, that he's a guy that'll be able to do a lot of things for us as a two-high safety, and also as a guy that can play the nickel position and be a physical guy out there in space.
Watch that block right there. You kind of like that block a little bit.
No question, man. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, he lines up everywhere on the football field for them. He's a guy that's not afraid to play down around the line of scrimmage, and those are some of the things that he's going to be asked to come in and do early in his career.
Is it realistic to think, Robert, that he can play quickly?
You know what? Coach Patterson really liked the kid as a football player, but his maturity level. You know, Coach Patterson feels like he's a guy that he'll be able to teach him a few things and put him out there early. And also special teams are such a big part of what we have to do in today's game, that he's a guy that we feel like can come in and help us in a lot of areas with his size and speed and some special team areas early.
One guy jumping back to this recruiting class from your position standpoint is Elijah Wellman from here in West Virginia. Give us your thoughts on him. He seems to have a personality type that is made to play that spot.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's always exciting for us to be able to sign a kid from in-state. Because he really understands what it's about to be a Mountaineer. He understands it. He grew up hearing it all of his life. So whenever you get a chance to bring a guy like that into your program, and for me as a position coach, bring a guy like that into my meeting room, definitely helps me to make the guys that are from out of state understand what it truly means to be a Mountaineer. So, but he's an athletic guy, can obviously catches the ball well, runs the ball well, going to help us in a lot of areas on special teams, and I think he has the size and mental mindset that he'll be a guy that can come in and help us play from day one.
When you went through this past season in the Big 12, and it certainly wasn't your maiden voyage, you had been in the league obviously previous at Oklahoma State. Was there anything you learned this season as to what you guys didn't have and what you needed, and how you've made that adjustment to get ready for next season?
Well, it was a learning curve for myself and the whole staff, and also the players. The fact that we were out there a couple of years ago, that conference has evolved and changed. I think because people always see it as a offensive conference, which they score points, but the defenses this year were very, very good. I think that was the biggest change, is that the defenses in the Big 12 are getting faster. They're going out to recruit a lot of safety bodies and guys that can run around and match the speed and tempo of the offensive side of the ball. So I think that was a big emphasis for us this year. You talk about getting a guy like Jeremy Tyler, going out and get a guy like Isaac McDonald. We saw that we had to get guys that are able to play in space a little bit better as we go into the future of the Big 12. So I think that was the biggest change for us.
Let me ask you this. Sean Alston made a difference on that football team last season because of the way that he ran, his style of play. These guys that you've brought in look as though they're his style of play. Is that something that you guys said as a group, we need to be able to be stronger between the tackles?
Well, coming into the situation and having a guy like Sean Alston that was already in-house was very good for us. But, these two kids we feel like are different than Sean. You know, these guys are able to do more out of the backfield than
More
Sean.
athletic.
More athletic, you know, able to catch the ball and better in space, you know, so we don't want to say that this guy's just like Sean.
Right.
You know, we feel like these kids add the power game that Sean had, but they're also guys that we can still throw the ball downfield to, run the screen game, and some of the things that we couldn't do with Sean last year.
And dropping back to McDonald and Jeremy Tyler, Coach, you talked about philosophically what you're starting to see in the trend in the Big 12. It's nice to have a couple kids at that safety position that you can also ask them to creep up into that nickel position and A, cover somebody, but B, come off the edge. And both of these guys on tape have demonstrated the ability to do that.
Well, these guys have the physical makeup that show that they're able to play in space, but they're also able to rush off the edge and just cause confusion in the run game. You know, and those guys have to be guys that can play every down. You know, we played against a lot of good teams, TCU, and those guys. You know, when they had a 6', 6'1", 195-pound guy out there that could cover Tavon and then also rush off the edge in blitz and stop the run when you ran outside zone at them, those are the guys that cause us the most problems. So Coach Patterson, you know, has identified that those are the type of guys that we need, and those are the guys that he wants to continue to recruit into the future.
Good insight, Robert. We appreciate your time. Congratulations on this class, and it won't be long. You guys will be out there, whistles blowing, spring ball right around the corner.
No question. We're ready.
Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Robert Gillespie joining us here on our special presentation on WVUsports.com. Bill Bedenbaugh is on deck, and we'll be joined by Bill Bedenbaugh here in just a second. Right now, let's take a look at the entire WVU recruiting class. We showed it to you when we first went on the air at about 1 o'clock this afternoon, and that list totals 24 players. And as we said, the possibility is that there are going to be some additions to that class as we go along here this afternoon. And obviously, by the time Dana Holgerson hits the podium at 3 o'clock this afternoon, we should have the majority of that list settled and announced. But it should also be noted that if you follow recruiting, it is not a surprise at all that in the couple of days, the day after or the days that follow, that there might be a name or two that will be added to that class, and I think the same will hold true in this year's class. Delighted to be joined right now by WVU's offensive line coach, Bill Bedenbaugh. Bill, thanks so much for being with us, and this obviously is always an important day, especially for linemen, because of all the positions, you are the guy, kind of, if you're a farmer, you're the one that really has to plant your seed and wait for it to grow, and you're betting a lot on the come, so to speak, when it's a lineman.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, O-linemen, for the most part, are the guys that you have to really bring in and develop. Not many. You know, I've been coaching O-line for a long time, and I've had 2 guys even play as true freshmen. So, you know, these are the guys that you go out, you find, you know, you're looking for certain things, you know, smart guys, tough guys, guys that are athletic, that really love playing football, you know, and those are the guys that you can, you know, bring in and watch develop, watch grow. Their bodies will grow, they'll get tougher, you know, mentally and physically. And, you know, the one position that generally you have to do that and project and watch those guys develop.
Let's talk about your class overall, and if we could put that board up here that has the WVU offensive lineman commitments to this point, and you'll see that your stocking got pretty filled up there.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good class. I mean, you know, again, you know, what we look for is, you know, what you go out and you have to be, in this day and age, you have to be smart. So, you know, the first thing we try to look for is kids that are smart. You know, you look at their academics, you try to get to know them, you know, the best that you can, and then, you know, you have to have athleticism and you have to be tough. So I think all 4 of these guys did that.
Let's start with Stone Underwood here, because you said oftentimes a true freshman isn't going to play, but he's a junior college player who's got an opportunity to fill a position of need. What did you like?
Well, the biggest thing is toughness, you know, and he's a kid that we got in on a little bit late. You know, he's a kid that we didn't really get in on until November, you know, and you can see some plays here. Kid that played in a very similar offense, but he is a tough kid. I've been coaching offensive line for a while. I've coached some pretty good centers, and the one thing about this kid is, you know, he broke his hand, and then the next game he starts snapping with the other hand. I played center. People probably don't realize how hard that is. You know, even if you did it the next year, it would be tough. But, you know, that just shows what type of toughness that this kid has. He made all the calls. Their offensive line coach there, Robert McFarland, coached at Iowa State. gave great reviews of the kid, and a guy that I respect. I've coached against when he was at Iowa State, and said, he's coached a lot of guys that are in the NFL, and said that this kid is one of the best centers he's ever coached.
And yet when you look at the schools that also were involved, this kid looks as though he was under-recruited.
Yeah, and again, you can look at that all you want. I think what happened is he's a May kid, and not a lot of junior college kids get heavily recruited if they're coming out in May. We obviously had a huge need for a center. We lost 3 of them last year. We've got 2 young guys that I think will be pretty good players. We'll find out through the spring if they're ready to play. But like you said, you don't really bring in junior college kids to sit on the bench, especially at a position of need like that. We brought in Glowinski last year. We were fortunate enough to be able to redshirt him, but we expect Stone to come in and play.
Is it realistic to think that he can learn what he needs to learn in regard to line calls to be ready to go in September?
I think so. He's a smart kid, and he did some very similar things, and that's the one thing talking to him when he came on his visit. I sat down, watched film with him, had him, I showed him our play, didn't really tell him, what it was, and I had him call out the front what they called it, the play what they called it, what the blocking scheme was, what he was doing, and things like that, and there's some similarities. So I think he can. Obviously, it's with every kid that we recruited, and that this will be the same till the end of time, as you never know till they get here.
And Coach, 2 things you always hear, I've always heard in terms of this offense, dating back to its early days at BYU all the way up through Texas Tech and on to here. The 3-day installation process, the Leach way that Coach Holgerson likes to apply, 3 days and out. But I've also heard that from a segment standpoint, the offensive line, because of the technicalities of it, is typically the last to catch on. You're talking about a smart kid in Stone Underwood. You're talking about losing 3 starters up front, but a nice nucleus of kids to build with. How do you see this mix of freshmen and a JC kid coming in and maybe immediately being able to provide help at large in this scheme, as Tony talked about in September? You got some bodies there.
Well, yeah, and the one thing about it, when you talk about the offense, yeah, we put in the offense in 3 days. But as far as offensive line goes, that's not totally true. I mean, because, yeah, are we going to put in inside zone on one day? Yes, but there's 4 or 5 different fronts that you can block against. So for the offensive line, it takes a little bit more time. But, like I said and like I told Stone, and it's up to him, and he's going to work hard to do it. It's up to him if he's going to come in here and earn a position, earn a starting position. But it's there for him. He's got to work. He's got to work right now until he gets here in May. And, then he'll be here all summer. Obviously, we can't do anything with him, but we've got some older kids like Ager and Spain and Kindler and Fight that have played that can really bring him along and teach him the offense.
And connecting the 4 kids that we're bringing in this class, the one parallel that I do see, they all seem to have pretty good feet. Now, I guess that translates for 2 reasons. One, if you move them down to the interior, they're obviously going to be asked to move around. But B, if you keep them on the exterior tackle, we talked about the premium of pass rushers in this league. Well, everybody else in the Big 12 is saying the same thing, so they're going to need those feet to pass protect. Talk about the importance of that when you're looking at a kid.
Oh, I think that's extremely important, really, in any offense these days with so much. The defenses are different. People move. Nobody really lines up in a 4-down front and stays still. So, you have to be smart to understand it, and then you have to have the feet to move in a tight space. It's not a 40 time, anything like that. It's being able to move your feet in a lateral position quickly, to adjust to whatever's happening, D lineman moving, a blitzer coming, things like that. And that is the first thing, obviously the size, that you got to look at the size first. And then the second thing I look at is their feet. Do they have the feet to be an offensive lineman and to be able to pass protect if we're going to throw it 50 times a game, or we run inside zone, outside zone to be able to reach a defender. So I think we've got that in all the guys. And the other thing I like is the versatility. Grant Lingenfelter, has played center, has played guard, has played tackle. Marcel Lazard has played tackle, has played guard. Tyler has played center and guard. Now Stone's the one guy, and he played tackle in high school, but he's the one guy that'll be set in a position when he comes here at center.
You've alluded to Tyler, talking about Tyler Tizano. You get him from Houston's Klein Collins High School, and we were talking about him before you came on. Highly acclaimed kid. He's special?
Yeah, I think so. Extremely smart. And I don't know if you guys remember, when I first got here, the guy, the prototypical offensive lineman was a 6'3" guy with arms like he's 6'6". This is a guy right here that's exactly like that. Was a wrestler in high school, great family, comes from one of the best programs in Houston. And I've been recruiting Houston for a long time, going to the Houston Touchdown Club. This guy was a finalist for the Houston Touchdown. I'd never seen an offensive lineman be a finalist in the Houston Touchdown Club, which is a huge honor if you know anything about that area. And this kid was a finalist. So I think he's a special kid, comes from a very good family, been brought up the right way. Texas high school is extremely important to those people down there, and he comes from one of the best programs.
Size-wise, you get a big kid in 6'6", 293-pound Marcel Lazard out of New Jersey. What caught your eye on tape?
Well, his size first thing, and then his feet. You know, and Marcel is awesome. He's been committed here since April. The spring game, he committed the spring game. This is a kid that did a great job for us. He recruited for us. His ringtone, you guys probably hadn't called him, but his ringtone is Country Roads. So he's an awesome kid. His family's unbelievable. They've been down here a ton. You know, he'll do great things here. You know, he works hard. Every time I call him on the phone, he's just getting out of a workout. Every time you see a tweet from him, he's just done working out. You know, so you know, he's going to put in the time to be a great player.
Bill, great insight. We appreciate it. Congratulations on the class, and we wish you the best.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's WVU offensive line coach Bill Beatonbow. We invite you to stay tuned. What do we got? Hour number 1 is into the book. We're with you until 3 o'clock. That's when the Dana Holgerson press conference will start. More from the WVU assistants. When we return, we'll focus on WVU's defense as the special presentation on WVUsports.com continues. It's being brought to you by Northeast Natural Energy.
We go to work each day with one desire: to supply clean, affordable energy to our state and nation. We know that developing clean burning natural gas here in West Virginia will lead to our nation's energy independence. We are a West Virginia company committed to protecting our environment and our state, doing it the right way to bring you domestic natural gas right here in West Virginia. We are Northeast Natural Energy.
Beauty and the Beast returns to the WVU Coliseum.
Gymnastics and wrestling will be competing at the same time.
Admission is only $1.
That's right, just $1.
So mark your calendar.
That's Beauty and the Beast, Sunday,
February 10th, 3 p.m.
When it comes to uncertain financial times, United Bank has a very unique perspective. Seasons may change, but United Bank is always a constant, providing you safety, security, and sound decision-making. That's the reason we've been in business since 1839. Safe, sound, secure. It's the hallmark of our success. United Bank, at your service.
The best college gymnasts in the country are coming to Morgantown.
This year they're unbelievable.
And you can watch them in action. From every high-flying performance to every show-stopping finish.
No deduction there.
Experience it live at the 2013 National Collegiate Women's Gymnastics Championships, Morgantown Regional. April 6th at WVU Coliseum in Morgantown, West Virginia. For tickets, go to ncaa.com/tickets to make a date with champions.
Welcome back, everyone, on WVUsports.com, the special presentation on National Letter of Intent Signing Day, being brought to you by Northeast Natural Energy. We're back inside Milan Puskar Center, I'm Tony Caridi along with Jed Drenning. Delighted to be joined right now by WVU Special Teams Coordinator Joe DeForest. Joe, good afternoon to you. And we jump right in here. Everyone wants to talk about, obviously, the new class and special teams and how the pieces were put together. Give me your philosophy here as you guys were out looking. What was, hey, we must get fill in the blank in this class?
Well, obviously, we had needs at every position. Defensively, we had needs at the safety position. I think we filled them. We needed some linebackers, and I think we needed some older guys to come in, which I think we did. And offensively, as you saw, it was a big skill position. You know, besides the 4 O-linemen, we got the receivers and the running backs that you could tell just going through the year that you know, you can't make it through a year with 1 or 2 running backs. You got to have a whole bunch of them.
Dana had said earlier on that one of the big keys that we talked a lot about last season was just an overall lack of depth. And we can kind of fill in the equation here. When you don't have a tremendous amount of depth, that impacts your special teams, coverage teams, return units. Kind of talk a little bit about that, and has this class been able to improve that depth?
I think for sure, because what you have to understand is when you, for instance, Carl Joseph, a true freshman, started at safety, well, you lose that body on special teams because his backup, obviously, was a guy that was hurt. So, and that's what put him in that position. So you got to measure the amount of reps that you give kids based on who his backup is and how big a drop-off that may be.
Now, from a 3-4 standpoint, that's one of the other things you often hear because of the scheme and because of the body type needed to run the scheme, that linebacker type, as opposed more of the big bodied types up front. You're in better position maybe to populate those special teams. And with this recruiting class, do you see it heading in that direction?
Absolutely.
With all these linebackers?
You have some skill kids, some bigger linebackers that are playing outside, and big safeties that can run down on all units and protection. So I think it's going to help us throughout the entire year be able to plug more bodies in than just a few we had to use this year.
All right, kicking-wise now, West Virginia is going to have a new punter this coming season, and you guys have signed a punter today out of junior college, Fullerton Community College in California, in Nick O'Toole. Big kid, 6'4", 220 pounds, and you can take a look here at some of O'Toole's kicks. What caught your eye? How'd you hear about him? And talk a little bit about the recruitment process.
Well, I've used a service, Chris Saylor kicking camp out in Vegas. He's out of California, but he has camps in Vegas that I've been coaching kickers for 20-something years now, and I've used him for the last 15. And we've had, at the previous place, we had a Ray Guy and a Lou Groza, and I got him out of that camp. So I trust him. He does a great job of evaluating, and then obviously when I evaluated him, I concurred with Chris, and he's a big body. He's played 1 year in junior college, which hopefully gives him some maturity. He's going to have to come in and earn the job. We still have, Mike Molinari on our team that's going to fight him for that job. And but I love big punters, big kickers because of the power they produce, and I think he's going to have a great chance to be a great college kicker, but he has the body type to be an NFL type player.
And doesn't hurt you with high snaps either when you're 6'4".
That's right. That's right.
And obviously, Coach, with that position, it's one that you do want to foster competition. But in looking at Nick O'Toole, a guy that down the stretch, Fullerton won their last 5 games. He did his part, 1.3 yards per carry allowed. When you look at a net punting return average like that, let me ask you about his directional kicking. We know about the hang time in the mid-4s, which is kind of where you want it. Directional kicking, so important, tilting the field in the Big 12. Does he have all those assets?
He does. He has the ability to with great hang time. He's got directional kick. I mean, he's pretty polished. Hopefully he won't come in here and get nervous in front of the big crowd but that could happen. But I think he seemed like a mature kid the time we got to recruit him and spend some time with him here last week, and I'm excited about getting him.
He's got a quick release, doesn't he? Like a one step, huh?
Yeah. That's great for everything. Great for protection, great for coverage.
It's interesting because you watch some of that clinic footage that you were talking about. Some of it's available on the internet, and what they'll do is they'll have him punt, and he's just punting in a straight line, and then they'll hold the sheet up in front of the video monitor and show you, hey, here's the hang time on 1, the hang time on 2.
Right.
Pretty good way to do it,
no
actually.
question.
But 2012, it's still interesting to see that.
Yep. But what amazed me, was the fact that, as far as avoiding getting punts blocked, that ball is in his hands, it's gone.
It's out. That's one thing that attracted me to him. I just think the total operation is key to anything, whether it's field goal kicking or punting, and he gives us that along with, John DePalmer is going to be that a year better, not as nervous. He got really good at the tail end of last year, and I think for the next 3 years we're set at specialists with a punter, a snapper, and a holder and a kicker.
Realistically, nowadays, you're going to have 3 kids here on scholarships that are specials.
That's what you'd
kick,
like to have.
Punt, and a long
And a snapper.
snapper.
You know, back in the days when Miami and Florida State used to have those games and it was wide right and wide left, and then people started to take notice and say, we better go find a guy. And I think the service that Chris Saylor has provided, and some other camps, Cole's kicking camp, I think that sort of isolates them in an area where you can go as a special teams coordinator and go and look and say, all right, there's 50 punters, 50 kickers, 50 snappers, and it's a time for you to evaluate.
That's when you look at forecasting positions, Coach. I mean, I've always felt that punters and kickers might be that's when you delve from football into baseball, which is notoriously difficult to project or forecast.
Right.
Who knows who's going to translate into a great kicker, as you said, how they respond to the crowd, how they answer to things, answer the bell. Punters and kickers are just tough to say, hey, you might do well at the junior college or high school level. It doesn't necessarily translate.
That's exactly what you don't know. You don't know what their psyche is. You can only go on what their coaches said and you know what the time you have to spend with them. But I'm confident that Nick's going to be okay.
Joe, thanks so much for being with us. We wish you the best here as these special teams, again, the least respected, most important part of any football program. I just still to this day don't understand why people don't talk more about the specialists. They tip fields, they win games, and it's almost like, oh, you know, you don't talk enough about
Unless they mess it up.
Unless they mess it up.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks for being with us, Joe.
Thank you.
WVU Special Teams Coordinator Joe DeForest with us. Let's take a look now at West Virginia's total list. 24 commitments, and again, this is expected to grow here as the day goes along. There's already been some press conferences that have taken place, and they're just officially waiting for letters of intent to be formally delivered here, and we'll have those for you. And again, we're going to be with you until 3 o'clock, so about another 45 minutes from now. And then after that, WVU's head coach Dana Holgerson will move into the team room. Our MSN cameras will be there, and we'll have the live video stream of the Dana Holgerson press conference. We go from players that kick the ball with finesse to big, burly defensive linemen who grab poor little quarterbacks and twist their bones and throw them to the ground. We're joined now by WVU defensive line coach Eric Slaughter. Is that appropriate?
We need some more of that.
Definition.
I like the way you said that. I'm going to use that in a meeting.
Well, buddy, here, let's jump in here. That was a key position, without question. The people said going into this offseason, they've got to get D linemen. Let's take a look at the harvest. And were you content? Are you content with what you were able to sign? Will it be of the immediate need help that you needed?
Sure. You know, we got Dontrell up front, who you know is a 6'4", 6'4 and a half, 275-pound guy that hadn't lifted weights. So he's going to be a big kid. You know, and what we're really trying to do defensively now up front with the 3 down guys is go to a 2 defensive end and a nose guard more than having a bigger tackle. You know, that's really to fit in the Big 12 where we got to have more athletes on the field. And so now you got bookends now and Dontrell Hyman and Will Clark on the other side. And, you know, guy's a beast. You know, he's very athletic. He's a guy that was a basketball guy. He's long and you know, has a knack for getting to the quarterback in a bad mood.
Weight room, I would think, is necessary for him.
Food, weight room. I mean, he's 270 pounds right now. If you see him, you know, people thought he was my dad, you know, when he was here on a visit. I mean, he's a full-grown man.
270, huh?
That's what I said. You know, and I put him on the scale. Went down there and saw him. He said 270. I said 250 maybe, and put him on there. He's 270. And so, if we can get him in here in the summer and get him on, in there with Coach Joseph, that guy's going to blow up.
What makes it all the more impressive, Coach, and what you saw out of Hyman this year was 2 years ago, second-team All-American, 14 sacks, a ton of TFLs, incredible production. People got wise to it a year ago. A few more double teams, started slide protection that way, chip it back a little more often, yet he was still productive. He overcame those things.
He really was.
Yeah.
You know, he's athletic, so he can make people miss is what you want. And I think having Will on the other side, and then you throw in the freshman that we had last year, when we got a good group coming back.
Yeah. In regard to Hyman, so we would say he's 270 right now. Realistically, can Mike Joseph pump him up? Can he be 280, 85?
I don't see why not. You know, I really don't. You know, and Will Clark's pushing that too, so, you know, that's very reachable. In fact, I expect it.
All right. Let's continue to talk about the guys that you're bringing in here. And overall, your philosophy as to who you have coming back. And as you said, you were forced. I mean, I don't think in the history of WVU football had we seen a defensive line this year play true freshmen at the number that you were forced into playing.
Yeah, we did. You know, it was some sleepless nights, and they're still growing up, but they're going to have another off season under their belt and be a year older. And then we throw Noble Nwachukwu, who redshirted in there as well. So that's a good group. The thing that we didn't have is we have 2 seniors in Will and Shaq, and then really a bunch of freshmen, even Kyle Rose, a redshirt freshman. So there was nothing in between, so we tried to bridge that gap a little bit with a junior college player and try to, not have to have those guys step up, maybe be starters next year if we can get Dontrell in here to take George's spot and go from there.
You made an interesting reference there with that 3-4. Rather than getting a bigger tackle physically, they're harder to find.
Right.
You'll go nose and 2 ends.
2 ends, but we want our ends to be in the 270 to 280 range. We want them to be big guys. They're not the traditional 5 technique that you see in a 4-3 defense. That comes from the buck linebacker. You've got to have guys that now in your nickel packages that can really generate pass rush off the edge, and we can be able to play 2 bucks at once and do things like that now with the guys we signed at buck as well.
Talk to me a little bit about Marvin Gross, a 6'4", 225-pounder out of the ever-popular Dunbar High School in Baltimore.
I think that's where Tavon went. That's what they told me anyway when I went over there. But, 220 is probably a little generous right now. The guy's going to need to get in the weight room. But he does what he does. He sacks the quarterback. And so, probably will play more as a buck linebacker early in his career than he will as a defensive end and then put his hand on the ground past the situations. But definitely a guy that can accelerate and get to the quarterback.
You made mention, just to make a note here on Tavon, I remember you telling me this during the season that when you went over, in fact I think it was when we went over there to play James Madison,
right.
you went recruiting that night before the game, and you said that you were amazed at how the legendary status of Tavon Austin is among those people
right.
In that Baltimore area.
Nobody knew me till they saw my WV, and then I was mauled. I want to know if I knew Tavon.
It's amazing.
You talk about buck linebacker. Let's talk a little bit about Brandon Golson. Does he not project to a buck linebacker
no doubt.
as well?
No
Let's
doubt.
talk a little bit about him because he's another guy that brings that gear off the edge.
Wow. Yeah, he's special. And so, we lost Josh Francis, and, we replaced with Brandon Golson. And then Devontae Henry as well will be projected to that spot. And so we're really upgraded. You can't have too many guys or enough guys in the Big 12 to rush the quarterback. And really in the 3-4, if you look at all the traditional 3-4 defenses, the Steelers, and you can go on and on and on, the people that generate pass rush for those guys are the outside backers.
Sure.
And so those guys are really when you talk about a 4-3 defense, your 5 techniques, your defensive ends. In our defense, the buck linebacker and the spur, is really the same guy. Those are your defensive ends. Where your true defensive ends in our 3-4 scheme are bigger guys. It really would be 3 techniques probably in a 4-3 defense.
Can he learn what he needs to learn quick enough to be an impact player?
I was very impressed with the guy, talking football with him about his knowledge and things like that. And Josh did a great job learning it last year, and it's really the same situation because we came in and
right.
Josh had to learn it on the fly. And so very impressed with his football knowledge, and I don't think there's going to be any problem with that.
He was heading toward west, until
what I heard.
until
things happen.
Yeah. That's the nature.
That's
of the
recruiting.
beast.
Yeah, it's competitive, and it's a tough world out there, and things changed, and so he's here with us now.
What do you think was the thing that changed for him to say, I want to go to WVU?
I think Coach Gibson had a relationship with him, obviously being on staff, and then he was from the east side of the country, which if you fly out to Arizona, which I've done recently to go see Devontae Henry, it's a long way. And so, if you want your people to see you on the East Coast and be able to watch your games on TV, then you want to be close to home, and I think that was a big factor. And to play in the 3-4 defense.
Well, 2 quick things to your team, Coach. You touched on the 3-4 and the differences between the 3-4 and a typical 4-3.
Right.
The production coming from the second level and off the edge. Well, one of the things you place a premium on, obviously, is occupying space at the point of attack.
No doubt.
Talk about a couple of those returning guys who help form that triangle from the nose up to the 2 inside backers. Let's talk about our noses. And you talked about Devontae Henry. Talk about the role that he's going to play on the edge. Let's start with the noses.
Okay, well, you got Shaq Rowell back, obviously, who did a great job. And then Christian Brown is back as well, who is going to be a phenomenal player. He's going to be unblockable. He just got to, continue to improve in the offseason and learn how to play at a high level for an extended period of time, which Shaq did last year. So we're very solid there. Kyle Rose is over 280 pounds now, and so, we can move him in there in certain situations as well. And you never know with guys we sign, that we may have some places to put them up front as well. So we're always looking for guys that, we can move around. The best D lineman I've ever had never played D-line. you know, they played other positions and got big. You look at Chris Nield, who played nose here, was a linebacker in high school. So that's always, you look for guys that can run and grew into a big body. That's what we want there. But right now we're solid there.
You think you'll be able to sleep better during the season this coming year? You said you had some sleepless nights.
We'll see how it goes. I mean, we still got to coach them up, and you know, just because you sign them, everybody's excited today. But this begins the process to a lot of hard work, and so we'll do that for sure. Then Henry, you know, Henry is a buck linebacker that can really run. Okay, and so I mean, he's very fast, and so what we've got to do is teach him pass rush moves and get him used to rushing the quarterback, which he has done. A lot of room to improve there, a lot of upside.
Take a look at some of his highlights right now, and you can see he makes a play in space. And
when you talk to Coach Minnick, he's notorious everywhere on campus for doing standing backflips. Talk about that athleticism, just a freak of nature.
He's a freak of nature, yeah. He really is, and he ran anchor leg on his high school sprint relay team in Oklahoma, and you know, one of Oklahoma's safeties or corners was on that team, so he outran him, and so he really can run, you know. And then when we drop him into coverage, he's a 6'5" frame that is going to be tough to throw over into the boundary on those short throws that people, you know, had success with us last year.
And Oklahoma was pushing hard for the hoop with him within the last month, and we fended that off. So let's talk about the types of things that weighed into his decision to come to West Virginia.
Well, you know, what we tried to sell him on, and I spent a lot of time with him, was that they, you know, they're talking about going to the 3-4, but they've been a 4-3. He's not a 4-3 defense. He's not big enough, and so he fit in our scheme, and that's the main thing.
Eric, great stuff.
Hey,
congratulations to you. Appreciate it.
Just go to work now.
Here we go. That's all we can do.
That's
Snow
right.
will go away, the grass will come up, and it'll be time for spring ball.
No doubt. All right. Thanks a lot.
Eric Slaughter joining us here. We invite you to stay tuned. Coming up, we'll chat with WVU's recruiting coordinator, Ryan Dorchester, and still to come, we'll be joined by both WVU assistant coaches, Lonnie Galloway and Tony Gibson. We're leading you up until 3 o'clock this afternoon. That's when the Dana Holgerson press conference will take place right here from the WVU team room. Back with more of the special presentation being brought to you in part by Northeast Natural Energy.
We go to work each day with one desire: to supply clean, affordable energy to our state and nation. We know that developing clean burning natural gas here in West Virginia will lead to our nation's energy independence. We are a West Virginia company committed to protecting our environment and our state, doing it the right way to bring you domestic natural gas right here in West Virginia. We are Northeast Natural Energy.
Beauty and the Beast returns to the WVU Coliseum.
Gymnastics and wrestling will be competing at the same time.
Admission is only $1.
That's right, just $1.
So mark your calendar.
That's Beauty and the Beast, Sunday,
February 10th, 3 p.m.
When it comes to uncertain financial times, United Bank has a very unique perspective. Seasons may change, but United Bank is always a constant, providing you safety, security, and sound decision-making. That's the reason we've been in business since 1839. Safe, sound, secure. It's the hallmark of our success. United Bank, at your service.
The best college gymnasts in the country are coming to Morgantown.
This year they're unbelievable.
And you can watch them in action. From every high-flying performance to every show-stopping finish.
No deduction there.
Experience it live at the 2013 National Collegiate Women's Gymnastics Championships, Morgantown Regional. April 6th at WVU Coliseum in Morgantown, West Virginia. For tickets, go to ncaa.com/tickets to make a date with champions.
On WVUSports.com, production of the Mountaineer Sports Network, we welcome you back inside the Milan Puskar Center. Tony Caridi along with Jed Drenning, and now we're joined by WVU's recruiting coordinator, Ryan Dorchester. Thanks for being with us. This presentation being brought to you today by Northeast Natural Energy. So we went on the air at 1 o'clock about 90 minutes ago, and we've been sticking with 24 commitments since we've been on the air, and now we're going to increase the number of commitments at WVU to 25, and it is a name, Ryan, that a lot of people have been nervously waiting for.
Yeah, Shelton Gibson, receiver from Cleveland Heights. So just sent his NLI and his grant and aid, so he's in the books, and you know, we're all pretty excited about Shelton.
Press conference took place.
Say,
what would you like to say? Well, yes, Coach. What would you like? What would you like to say?
Did a great job putting this class together, but happy birthday, Ryan.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Especially
is that right? On recruiting day. On recruiting day.
Yeah. Holiday, birthday, all rolled into one.
Perfect day for a recruiting coordinator.
I know. Shelton Gibson was the cherry.
Feels like it, but you actually it is.
Yeah, literally lived it. It's like my birthday.
So Ryan, with Shelton Gibson, and now that we can talk about him, press conference took place at noon today, and here we are, 2:30. Why was it a very, very slow telephone line on the fax?
Yeah, you know, I'm a little curious myself as to why we still use fax machines for this, but you know, had some issues there, but we got it all straightened out. My man, Coach Rotsky up there at Cleveland Heights, he helped us out, so Shelton's in the books and good to go.
Okay, some consider him to be the one of the gems of this class, if not the gem. 4-star commitment, heavily recruited among the likes of Ohio State, Auburn, Nebraska, Pitt, Michigan State, Tennessee. The volunteers had come in very heavily. Let's take a look here. What did you guys like? What kind of a player is West Virginia getting here?
I think we're getting a guy that can help us in a number of different ways. I mean, he's obviously dynamic with the ball in his hands. He came to our camp this summer, you know, played not only well on offense but on defense, but he's just a special guy. You know, some guys have it and the ability to make people miss in space, and he possesses that. There's very few kids I've seen in person that compete harder than Shelton. And being from Northeast Ohio myself, I like to add a little bit of Northeast Ohio flavor to the team. So we're real excited, real excited.
He wears, you see there, the number 1, and obviously he's going to draw comparisons to another guy who wore that number 1 jersey here, and that is totally unfair because West Virginia's played football for 120 plus years.
No doubt.
And there's never been another Tavon Austin, but does he fit into the mold of that playmaker type that instantaneously will make an impact?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I think we can all agree it's going to be pretty hard to replace a guy like Tavon, but you can replace the production, and I think Shelton's a guy that's going to be able to come in and help alleviate some of that. You know, I mean, Tavon took away a lot of yards not only on offense from rushing, receiving, but the return game. And I think Shelton can be a guy that could, you know, help supplement that loss a little bit in all 3 phases.
And you have to like the way, Ryan, overall, that this class is shaping up in terms of the receiver position. We have Alford, we have Carswell, we have Gibson, Shorts, White. Talking about Shelton Gibson, complete football player. He's physical, he's fearless, he's tenacious, but one of the things you have to like, he's a selfless player. He told his coach, hey, if I have to give up touches to help us win, I'll do so.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it firsthand down here this summer in our 7-on-7 tournament when he was playing with Cleveland Heights and, you know, playing offense, playing defense, just doing whatever it takes to win. And you know, it's one thing Coach Holgerson put a big emphasis on was getting guys that are competitors and guys that want to be here. And Shelton really wanted to be here. So
45 catches last season, 21 of those went for touchdowns, and so this guy's the ultimate
it's a good ratio.
ball-skilled playmaker.
It's a pretty good ratio. If he keeps that up in college, he may pass Stedman's touchdown record.
That would be a good problem to have. Give me a philosophy that you and the rest of the coaches had put together in regard to this recruiting class. What was the, hey, we must do this? What was it, and did you do it?
Well, I think it was going back talking about guys that want to be here, that want to be team guys, trying to get some selfless guys in here. Just, you know, one of our themes for this spring has been team, you know, and what that stands for: toughness, effort, all-in Mountaineer mentality. And that was something that, you know, kind of carried into the recruits. Guys that are just want to be Mountaineers, you know, above anything else.
How do you, that's a great point, and I totally agree with that. How do you try to determine that intangible?
You know, I think it's just getting to know them, being around kids, you know, and part of that was, you know, this class, I know we signed kids from 15 different states, so it's all over the place, but we really knew a lot of these kids really well because they've been here multiple times. So the more you're around them, the more you get to know them, the easier it is to figure out kind of, you know, weeding through a little bit of what they say and being able to determine, you know, if they really want to be here.
Right.
And you touched on an interesting point there, 15 different states, Ryan. We've talked a lot about the fact over the course of the recent decades, West Virginia building toward a national brand. How is that message now resonating on the recruiting trail with that Big 12 badge on our shirt as opposed to a Big East badge?
I think it just gives you legitimacy and recognition right off the bat. You know, people recognize and can associate with Texas, Oklahoma, and the teams of the Big 12, and we're in the Big East, you know, they didn't really have an identity. We were kind of the bell cow, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you know, now you're mixing the likes of those teams. You're in that company. It just helps you start that conversation with kids.
And you have to like the fact that West Virginia, as the easternmost school in a very southwestern conference, for this to work and flourish the way we want it to, you're going to have to dip into places like Pennsylvania and Ohio and get players the likes of Sheldon Gibson.
Sure. I mean, and you know, I think that we can, you know, no matter what conference you're in, you're still playing 7 games in Morgantown. So, you know, people trying to use that distance thing against us is not really, it's kind of a baseless statement. You know, the majority, you know, especially with TV, being in a conference like the Big 12, I mean, all of our games are going to be broadcast, you know.
Ryan Dorchester is WVU's recruiting coordinator. You mentioned that today is a big day, obviously, that this is the majority of the letters of intent that are signed, but they're not all the letters of intent that are signed. Realistically, Ryan, over the next days, couple of weeks, how much can this class, what do you expect this class to grow by?
I'm not going to say it's necessarily going to grow. It could. You know, we always kind of like to leave that option out there, but, you know, right now I think we're pretty happy with where we're at. You know, we got 25 solid guys, and, you know, we're good. But you always kind of want to have something in your back pocket because you never know what can pop up.
The walk-on program has been very successful through the years here at West Virginia. We can go through a long list of guys that have come in here as walk-ons, earned scholarships, and have these tremendously productive careers. And I think the most iconic figure ever would be Rich Braham from University High School, who leaves as an All-American and has this incredible NFL career. How is the list of the invited walk-ons coming together?
Pretty well. You know, it's something that Coach Holgerson made a point of, you know, this season what he wanted us to get walk-ons, again, on the same lines that want to be here. And we made it a point of emphasis from our staff to try to recruit kids to be walk-ons. And that's tough. You know, you're asking kids to take on that financial burden. It's something I do. I had to pay my own way through college, so I understand. You know, I can relate to them. But, you know, we had a walk-on day this past Saturday. So we had about 10 guys in town, and we've had, you know, quite a few commit to wanting to come here, which, you know, those guys are as important as a lot of the kids that sign the scholarships. You know, and that's the thing in recruiting, you never quite know how they're going to pan out.
Yeah. The one thing we do know about recruiting is that as soon as this day's over, the 2014 class starts. Already started. And so that will be something that we'll talk about, and who knows, it might be his birthday again next year at this time. Ryan, congratulations. Have a good rest of the day as the Mountaineers put the numbers together. 25 right now and standing on this recruiting list. We invite you to stay tuned. Still to come, some familiar faces to the Mountaineer football program. Lonnie Galloway and Tony Gibson will be joining us. We invite you to stay tuned. Special presentation here on WVUSports.com will lead you into Dana Holgerson's 3 o'clock press conference from the team room. Today's broadcast being brought to you by Northeast Natural Energy. We'll be back.
We go to work each day with one desire: to supply clean, affordable energy to our state and nation. We know that developing clean burning natural gas here in West Virginia will lead to our nation's energy independence. We are a West Virginia company committed to protecting our environment and our state, doing it the right way to bring you domestic natural gas right here in West Virginia. We are Northeast Natural Energy.
Beauty and the Beast returns to the WVU Coliseum.
Gymnastics and wrestling will be competing at the same time.
Admission is only $1.
That's right, just $1.
So mark your calendar.
That's Beauty and the Beast, Sunday,
February 10th, 3 p.m.
When it comes to uncertain financial times, United Bank has a very unique perspective. Seasons may change, but United Bank is always a constant, providing you safety, security, and sound decision-making. That's the reason we've been in business since 1839. Safe, sound, secure. It's the hallmark of our success. United Bank, at your service.
The best college gymnasts in the country are coming to Morgantown.
This year they're unbelievable.
And you can watch them in action. From every high-flying performance to every show-stopping finish.
No deduction there.
Experience it live at the 2013 National Collegiate Women's Gymnastics Championships, Morgantown Regional. April 6th at WVU Coliseum in Morgantown, West Virginia. For tickets, go to ncaa.com/tickets to make a date with champions.
Here on WVUSports.com, we welcome you back into the Milan Puskar Center. It is National Letter of Intent Signing Day 2013, and this is being presented to you by Northeast Natural Energy. We welcome you back in. I'm Tony Caridi, along with the football savant, Jed Drenning. And hey, look who's back. The smiling face of WVU's Lonnie Galloway. Lonnie, it's great to have you back in the
Glad
fold.
to be back. Didn't see it coming, but, you know, when Coach Ogerson called me, I was, you know, took the call in stride and, you know, talked to my wife and, you know, I wanted to get back. You know, it was a great opportunity to get back and, you know, the things that I saw, because I always kept up with what was going on from the guys that I had recruited here. So, you know, this is home.
Yeah, you recruited a few guys here that didn't do too badly.
Right.
Didn't do too badly. And all you have to do is just keep doing that on a regular basis. Let's jump in here. You're going to be coaching, obviously, wide receivers here. How long, if it did take you long, to kind of learn about your personnel that you are inheriting and what is coming in?
Some of the guys that were here, I was involved with KJ Myers and KJ Myers, Campbell, and
Dante Campbell. Sure.
Dante Campbell, and I knew Mathis, you know, just from down at Miramar, and Devontae Robinson. You know, I was trying to recruit him a little bit when I was at Wake. You know, trying to sway him, but you know, they've been working hard. Hadn't been able to really work with them, but you know, the guys are working from what I've seen, and you know, been able to meet with them one time. So, you know, very excited to get going with them here coming up soon.
You hit the ground running, obviously.
Right.
I mean, you were thrust right into the middle of it in the 11th hour of things. From a recruiting standpoint, moving forward, you're obviously going to play an instrumental role in things. So let's talk to you. Look at the big picture.
Right.
Let's talk to you about a guy who has made the pitch for West Virginia in the past and landed some of the guys that we were alluding to earlier. Helped land your Bruce Irvins, your Tavon Austins. What's that pitch like?
You know, I just put it all out there for them and on where we're trying to get to as far as the level that you want to compete at, and, you know, not try to sell them a whole bunch of mess. You know, just be straight up with them and, you know, earn their trust. And, you know, it's not about, because when you're recruiting those type of kids, it's not that they can play football. I mean, you need to learn more about the kid. That way they'll trust you and be able to talk to you about everything. You know, the kids that we're recruiting, I mean, we wouldn't be recruiting them if they couldn't play. So it's more intel with, you know, what's going on at home, how are situations, you know, those type of things, I think, you know, get you involved with the big-time players.
Let's talk about some of these kids that are coming in that are going to be wide receivers for the Mountaineers. Who's standing out for you?
Mario Alford is a dynamic player. You know, when you watch his highlight tape, you see, you know, flashes of him being able to play in the slot and, you know, being able to get in the backfield and do those type of things that, you know, Tavon has done. So, you know, it's one of those things where he's an exciting player. You know, he runs fast and, you know, catches the ball. And, you know, he's an older kid, so he's coming in with you know, from playing at a GMC where, you know, he's played against good talent, you know, week in and week out. So, I mean, he'll be ready to go, and we're counting on him a lot to come in and try to fill a big void.
Ronald Carswell is a kid that won't come in, that isn't here yet, but he's a junior college player that looks as though has got a good pedigree.
I mean, you know, he was at Alabama, you know, was recruited by Alabama, and Coach Saban them, you know, normally don't miss on too many kids, but, you know, has a lot of, you know, good ball skills, run after catch, and, you know, is a tall kid, you know, 6 foot, 6'1" around in there, so just fits, you know, the mold that we're looking for, you know, to be able to plug in, you know, because it's the offense that you need, you know, 6, 7, 8 guys that you can count on, you know, with the up-tempo style.
Interesting story on DeKeel Shorts, in that he went to Eastern Christian Academy this past season. They only played 3 games.
Right.
And so he's literally not seen much
right.
as far as other guys. What do you guys like about him at 6'1", 200 pounds?
I mean, he's a big, thick kid, and, you know, he's here. He comes by. DeKeel's a great kid, you know, first and foremost. He is a great, tremendous kid. Works hard, you know. Coach Joseph, you know, talked about his work ethic, and the quarterbacks are talking about how he's putting in the effort to, you know, to learn what to do, and you know, the sky's the limit for him because of the guys that are back, you know, not that many of them have played.
Right.
So go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you, Coach. In this class of receivers, it does look like we're seeing some kids that not only from the junior college level can step in and maybe be splash players right out of the gate because they're a little more polished, a little more advanced, but maybe even some of the younger kids, like a Sheldon Gibson or a Shorts, have that ability to step in and maybe contribute sooner rather than later.
I mean, it's huge when you can get them in the summertime and they come in and are able to work with the quarterbacks and learn the offense and what is expected of them. So, you know, by the time August rolls around, they should know what to do. And now you just, you know, you put the polish on them and get them, you know, playing fast and learning what to do. So it's a big transition when you can get them all here. You know, with the junior college kids that are here, they're older, they play, so they're used to the competition.
Lonnie, great to have you back. We appreciate the time.
Glad to be here.
WV Receivers Coach Lonnie Gibson, we invite you to stay right here as we take a look at the WVU team room. And yes, you are looking live at a very empty room that in a matter of, about 15 to 20 minutes, we'll be joined by WVU's Dana Holgerson in that room, and Coach Holgerson will give the formal presentation on this 25-person recruiting class. And you see on that first column, last name, that's the most recent addition. That is Shelton Gibson. His national letter of intent was just announced by WVU's Ryan Dorchester in the last 10 or 15 minutes, and that was the name that a lot of people were, I'm not going to say nervous about, but they wanted to make sure that his letter of intent, in fact, did come in. And so Shelton Gibson is among a class of 25 players. And you take a look at a young guy here who Ryan had alluded to out of Northeast Ohio, who is expected to make the immediate impact that West Virginia needs on the offensive end with the losses of Stedman Bailey and Tavon Austin, just to name a few. This is a guy that at least potentially could come in and make plays immediately. Shelton Gibson may make plays immediately. Another Gibson made some plays immediately upon coming back here to West Virginia. It's WVU's Tony Gibson. Welcome back, Gibby.
Thank you. Great to be back.
You wasted no time in going out there, and as they say in the recruiting business, you did some flipping of some recruits.
Yeah, it was a process the last couple of weeks, you know, just talking with the guys. Brandon and Mario, you know, I had a very good relationship with those guys. I had a good relationship with the coaches at Georgia Military. And, you know, when they found out I was coming to West Virginia, they were very excited about it. And, you know, obviously in the end, they wanted to be a part of it. And you know, I think that our staff did a great job of getting to know the kids in the last couple of weeks. You know, that's always the hard thing. Who's going to be coaching me? What system am I in? And those things. So we had to make them very familiar with that.
And Lonnie alluded to this, and I think some of the other guys have alluded to this. It's more so about relationships and kids trusting you than how big the building is or what the uniforms look like, correct?
Yeah, no question about that. And you know, when you start building a relationship with a kid, not only the kid, it's the family. You know, the mom, the brother, the girlfriends, you know, all those things play into it. So, you know, when I had a chance, obviously, to get back out on the road and get down there and see the guys and get in the home and bring some coaches with me, it was, you know, I think the family liked it. They liked the situation of them being 8 hours from home, you know, having the opportunity.
Jump off track, Gibby. 1993. This guy breaks his arm in the national championship game on the first play. Comes out. They want to send him to the hospital. He says no, tape it up, goes the rest of the way. Until this recruiting class, it was the best broken bone story I'd heard. Stone Underwood breaks his hand, starts a game 2 days later with the other hand. I digress. Talking about Golson and Alford, 2 kids that you recruited out of Georgia military, how much of a factor it was early playing time in their decision here?
Oh, a lot, you know, and I think that the buck position fits Golson perfect. You know, the kid's 6'4", 235 pounds, and runs very well. So I really like the way that he moves. Our staff liked him, you know, and just seeing him move around and the things that he could bring with that, get after quarterbacks, drop in coverage. So we were very excited about him. And then Mario, you know, I mean, this kid, you know, I don't know how much film anybody's seen on him, but he has a whole nother gear. Mm-hmm. So, you know, he can go and to fit into this offense with what we do and the numbers that he'll be able to put up are going to be very exciting.
Briefly, you haven't had a chance because, again, you were parachuted in right in the middle of a recruiting process. The kids that you're about to inherit at the safety positions, talk a little bit about what you see and what you're getting there.
Well, you know, first with the Worley kid, you know, he's a very talented young man. He's got some size, length. You know, really like the way he plays. You know, he's a hitter. He's got great cover skills and all that. Then the next kid that we got on, Jeremy Tyler, you know, Coach Gillespie did a great job with him the last couple of weeks of recruiting, and, you know, just getting to see him and spend the day with him on his official visit, talking football. Very smart kid. You know, he hits. You know, love the way he hits. Reminds me a lot of Jamal Adai. That's the first guy that came to mind when I started watching him.
That's not bad to think about.
Yeah, I hope that he could live up to that.
Gibby, you're going to have enough personnel groupings as far as going from odd stack, which you're obviously very used to now to this 3-4. Do you feel your pieces are coming together?
Yeah, no question about it. And, you know, with what we'll do with the defense, you know, we're going to have 3 safeties in the game a lot. You know, depends on who we're playing and what they're doing to us. But, you know, Coach Patterson will have a great plan. And we'll be good to go with our kids we have, and there'll be spots for everybody.
Congratulations, Gibby.
Thank you.
All right, immediately made your impact known. Tony Gibson back on the WVU staff, and he has helped this WVU class grow to 25 players. We invite you to stay tuned. We're coming up on the 3 o'clock-ish press conference with WVU head coach Dana Holgerson. He'll go through the players, player by player, the 25 names that you're seeing right now, and among those groups of players that you're seeing there, the 3 columns, about a half a dozen have been here on campus since January. They're already beefing up. Some of these young guys will get here May, June as high school graduation takes place. You take a look right now, those are the players that have been enrolled here at WVU, and there are 7 of those right now. We've been talking about those guys over the last almost 2 hours now. Back here at our broadcast spot, we're now joined by a new member of the WVU coaching staff. WVU's Brian Mitchell joins us from East Carolina to the Mountaineer program. Brian, welcome on board, and your name already coming into play here on this list. You played some role in putting this class together.
Had a small part, just a very small part, but I look forward to getting into a full recruiting season where we can all, dive into the process and get the kids we need.
Talk about what you were able to do with this class. You had a pre-existing relationship, and it earned a commitment.
Well, it started 3 years ago with Dontrell, and we knew he was a young man that we needed to place out of junior college, and I was very fortunate to place him at Hines Junior College with a very close friend that's been friends with me and my family for 15 years, and he was in very good hands. And when Dontrell decided not to go back to ECU and open up recruiting to everyone, why not West Virginia? And the young man was very excited about the process of West Virginia recruiting him, and made my life a little bit easier.
When you take a look at him, can you kind of describe his style of play?
Well, first and foremost, he's a cookie cutter, player. He fits every profile you want in a D lineman. He's long, he's rangy, he's got the height, he's got the broad shoulders, he's got the quick feet, he's got the basketball physique. He's a young man that can make some things happen in the Big 12, and not just from a pass standpoint, but he can affect the run as well. He's also a young man that's hungry, he's eager. He's a young man that, is a blank canvas. And I've heard Coach, KP say that quite a bit. He's a young man that's going to come in under Coach Slaughter's tutelage and get better each and every day.
This is a guy right here, Tony, who understands the fastest way to fix what's ailing you on the back end is to fix things up front. The more readily you're in the face of that quarterback, the easier life's going to be for those corners. Now, again, you were parachuted into, haven't had much of a chance, I wouldn't imagine, to look at the personnel on roster that you're inheriting. Broderick Jenkins, Terrell Chestnut. There's a list of corners down through there. But talk about how those worlds are about to meet. These pass rushers in this class, how that's going to benefit your group of corners moving forward into a Big 12 world that really challenges those defensive backs.
Well, they go hand in hand. A great pass rush is great pass defense. You know, holding coverage long enough to give those guys enough time. And yet, you know, the timing of the game is getting to the point where either quarterbacks are going to get it out of their hand very quick within 2.5 seconds, or they're going to hold it trying to go through the progression. That's going to give our guys enough time to come off the edge. But, you know, when you have two bookends that look like Dontrell and the other young man, that's what, 6'5", 6'6" on the other side, and you've got guys up the middle pressure with linebacker pressure from the outside. That unpredictability is going to bode well for what we're going to be doing in the 3-4 from a coverage standpoint, as well as getting negative plays.
To say that your position will be watched closely in the coming season would be an understatement.
Well, that's the nature of the beast. I mean, those guys are always under a microscope, and hey, I welcome the challenge. But I'm excited about the kids that we have coming back.
It's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
Brian Mitchell, WVU cornerbacks coach, joining us here. We invite you to stay tuned when we come back as we head toward the Dana Holgorsen press conference at about 3 o'clock. It might be 3:05. We'll be joined by WVU's coordinators, Shannon Dawson and Keith Patterson. We invite you to stay tuned. A special presentation from the Mountaineer Sports Network, brought to you by Northeast Natural Energy.
We go to work each day with one desire: to supply clean, affordable energy to our state and nation. We know that developing clean burning natural gas here in West Virginia will lead to our nation's energy independence. We are a West Virginia company committed to protecting our environment and our state, doing it the right way to bring you domestic natural gas right here in West Virginia. We are Northeast Natural Energy.
Beauty and the Beast returns to the WVU Coliseum.
Gymnastics and wrestling will be competing at the same time.
Admission is only $1.
That's right, just $1.
So mark your calendar.
That's Beauty and the Beast, Sunday,
February 10th, 3 p.m.
When it comes to uncertain financial times, United Bank has a very unique perspective. Seasons may change, but United Bank is always a constant, providing you safety, security, and sound decision-making. That's the reason we've been in business since 1839. Safe, sound, secure. It's the hallmark of our success. United Bank, at your service.
The best college gymnasts in the country are coming to Morgantown.
This year they're unbelievable.
And you can watch them in action. From every high-flying performance to every show-stopping finish.
No deduction there.
Experience it live at the 2013 National Collegiate Women's Gymnastics Championships, Morgantown Regional. April 6th at WVU Coliseum in Morgantown, West Virginia. For tickets, go to ncaa.com/tickets to make a date with champions.
On WVUsports.com, we welcome you in our live video stream. We're heading toward the completion of our second hour, and coming up at 3 o'clock this afternoon, give or take 5 minutes, we'll be joined by WVU's Dana Holgorsen, and you'll be able to watch the formal press conference of Coach Holgorsen announcing the signing of 25 players to this 2013 recruiting class. We're back here along with Jed Drenning, now joined by WVU's offensive coordinator, Shannon Dawson. Shannon, good to see you again, buddy. Give me your desire let's just say offensively, with this recruiting class, what did you bang your hands on the table with when you guys were having your meeting saying we need what?
Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious what we're losing from last year. And so, you know, recruiting is simple. You got to fill the holes that you lose. And so we needed to take a good group of O-linemen. We needed to replenish our receiving core. We lost all of our production. And so we needed some running backs. We needed an older running back. We needed a younger running back. We got that. And so, you know, this recruiting deal, I mean, the game of football is still about player development. And so all these kids that we got here, none of them have taken a snap yet. And so, but we have the bodies in place from what we lost, in my opinion, to start developing these kids. And hopefully we've gained some depth.
Shelton Gibson take a good first step in trying to replace some of that gaudy statistical numbers that Tavon had put up?
Hopefully. You know, great kid, great player, loves this place. This place loves him. And so very happy to get him. And, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do early, you know. And, I mean, a kid like that obviously has shown that he has a talent to do great things. Now, you know, he's still got to come in and compete like everybody else, no doubt. And I think him and guys like Mario, DeKeel, and people like that, I mean, you know, they're mature kids. And so hopefully those guys can come in and do great things.
I mean, at large, Shannon, you came into the class with some needs that you wanted to address.
Right.
Obviously, the production, Geno, Steb, and Tavon, 23,000 yards or thereabouts that we're losing and have to supplant.
Are you trying to depress me?
That's exactly right. It's pretty daunting. But numbers at every position that you wanted to address. But what I want to ask you about is, let's talk about some of these kids who are now on campus.
Right.
And the value of being able to work with those kids up towards spring ball. You have Rollins, you have Shorts, you have, for instance, Kevin White, Dreamius Smith. Let's talk about those kids and the value of having them here early.
And Wendell's here too, the other one, the freshman running back. You know, getting kids here midterm is vital. You know, obviously those guys can get acclimated into going to classes, figuring out the structure of being a college student athlete. You know, we can't work with those guys until spring practice starts. And so it's vital that our strength staff, you know, has their hands on them. Now, you know, all the stuff that our kids do on their own, it's important that our older kids can coach those younger kids up, because they really do the coaching right now, not us. We can't. And so, and we really won't know who we have until spring ball hits. Right. Now, I mean, we can, you know, when we walk around these halls or whatever, we get to know the kids really well. And there's all kind of gossip going around with the older kids of who's, you know, who's doing good, who looks good, this and that. So, you know, but as far as those kids getting here early, I mean, I think it's vital.
You've been out on your own away from Coach Holgerson, running this same scheme. Obviously, your days at Stephen F. Austin. I'm not familiar with any of you guys who have had a guy like Rollins at the quarterback position. So he brings a bit of a unique skill set in terms of what you guys do. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, having Geno is kind of spoiled us a little bit, being able to extend plays. You know, I mean, I think the way college football is going, I mean, it helps to have a quarterback that's mobile enough to be able to extend plays, keep their eyes down the field, and make plays. And I think a guy with his athletic ability and his upside is huge. You know, he's going to have a tremendous opportunity. You know, we're going to develop that kid, and we're going to conform him into the quarterback we want him to be. And so, but his natural ability at times are going to take over, which I mean is going to be interesting to see.
Good stuff. Shannon, thanks so much for being with us.
Appreciate it, guys.
Mountaineer offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson with us as you take a look at the class of 25 signees that WVU has put together today. Coming up in just a couple of moments, we'll be hearing from WVU head coach Dana Holgerson. He'll be addressing the media. As you see, a few of the media members starting to make their way in. We'll have the live video stream for you coming up just in a couple of minutes. We've got one last person to interview from that WVU staff, and in just a second we'll be chatting here with WVU defensive coordinator Keith Patterson as you take a look at that list of 25 players. And if you've joined us earlier on, the 25th edition was Shelton Gibson, and that came about 2:30 this afternoon. Officially, he has signed on the dotted line. Back now with WVU defensive coordinator Keith Patterson. Keith, good to see you.
Good to see you.
It is a very important day overall for any football program, especially here at WVU defensively. This was a big, big day. You needed to put as many possible tools inside your toolbox.
No doubt.
Did you get what you needed to get?
I thought we did. You know, it started up front. You know, Hyman is going to give us another big body in there that very versatile, very disruptive inside. And then thought the biggest thing I think with the addition is the length that we have on the outside with Henry, as well as Golson, and the speed that both those guys possess. 6'3" to 6'5", both of them, and they both run extremely well down around 4.5. They run like DBs, and I think that's going to be very beneficial for us. You look at the size that we added at linebacker with Darian Howard and Rashid. If you look at both those guys, are 235 pounds. Already. You look at with Darian Howard. I mean, I'm not sure what Darian weighs right now. I'd know.
We're listing him at 250. Do you think that's is that a little high?
That might have been about 2 or 3 months ago.
He doesn't move like it on tape.
No, he doesn't. I mean, he moves. He plays like a 210 pounder. With as far as his speed. So we got great size. And then Hadari Christian, who's already on campus, is going to be another young linebacker that I think we definitely made improvements there. So I like the athleticism along with the size and the length that we added up front, no doubt.
Playmakers and pass rushers.
Yeah, that's what the game has evolved to. I mean, you got to have guys up front that can be disruptive yet be able to hold up to the run. And the thing I like about it, if you look at Al Rashid and you look at even Hadari, both those guys were high school running backs. I think Al Rashid rushed for 700 yards and he had 110 tackles. So again, the thing I like about high school running backs is the vision that they possess. They don't tie up with blockers a lot of times. They're very good at escaping blocks, and you don't have to teach that. So they just have a natural instinct to be able to see basically the people trying to block them are invisible. So they're able to get to those ball carriers.
Yeah, that's a good point. Realistically, Keith, how many of these guys need to play in some shape or fashion into the 2 deep, 3 deep?
Well, yeah, I think it's got to start with the outside guys, losing Josh and Terrence, both those guys. I mean, I think we got to have people step up, outside. Again, being able to disrupt, quarterbacks as well as being able to hold up and stop the run. So I definitely think that we helped ourselves there. Also by recruiting people like Al Rashid and even Darian, the size that they possess. Those guys can move and be very versatile, play a lot of different positions in a 3-4. So again, I think that those are the 4 that you start with, primarily the guys up front. It's going to be hard to crack into the secondary, I think. I really like the development of our safeties just in early parts of the off season. I think we're going to have good depth. Got to get some guys healthy there. And then at corner, I mean, we're going to do some things, I think, structurally, coverage-wise, that are going to help them, and also be able to create some depth there at that position.
Very good. Keith, good seeing you. Congratulations.
You bet.
All right,
Thank you.
Mountaineer Defensive Coordinator Keith Patterson will take a break, and when we come back, Dana Holgerson will be heading toward the podium, and he will be giving us the official announcement on the class of 25. Stay with us. A special presentation on WVUsports.com presented to you by Northeast Natural Energy.
We go to work each day with one desire: to supply clean, affordable energy to our state and nation. We know that developing clean burning natural gas here in West Virginia will lead to our nation's energy independence. We are a West Virginia company committed to protecting our environment and our state, doing it the right way to bring you domestic natural gas right here in West Virginia. We are Northeast Natural Energy.
Beauty and the Beast returns to the WVU Coliseum.
Gymnastics and wrestling will be competing at the same time.
Admission is only $1.
That's right, just $1.
So mark your calendar.
That's Beauty and the Beast, Sunday,
February 10th, 3 p.m.
When it comes to uncertain financial times, United Bank has a very unique perspective. Seasons may change, but United Bank is always a constant, providing you safety, security, and sound decision-making. That's the reason we've been in business since 1839. Safe, sound, secure. It's the hallmark of our success. United Bank. at your service.
The best college gymnasts in the country are coming to Morgantown.
This year they're unbelievable.
And you can watch them in action. From every high-flying performance to every show-stopping finish.
No deduction there.
Experience it live at the 2013 National Collegiate Women's Gymnastics Championships, Morgantown Regional. April 6th at WVU Coliseum in Morgantown, West Virginia. For tickets, go to ncaa.com/tickets to make a date with champions.
Our continuing coverage of National Letter of Intent Signing Day continues here on WVUSports.com. Thanks so much for being with us as West Virginia's Dana Holgerson gets ready to talk with the media for the first time publicly. He'll review each of the players that we've been talking about here over the last 2 hours. WVU's sports information man in charge of football, Mike Montoro, heading to the podium now. And in just a moment, we'll hear from WVU head football coach Dana Holgerson from inside of the WVU team room. Let's listen in.
Okay, welcome everybody. First want to just tell everybody how much I appreciate recruiting coordinator Ryan Dorchester, who's in the back here, for the job that he's done on getting this class together. He's done a tremendous job, and he's celebrating his birthday today, so happy birthday, Ryan. The rest of the staff's in attendance here that you guys can get with some of these guys. A lot of these guys, several of these guys are first time you've had available access to be able to talk with these guys, but just commend the staff on the job that they did of getting this class together. If you look at the dynamics of it, you know, we got 25 guys in the fold right now. 7 of them are already on campus, so we've actually been coaching 7 of these guys, you know, already. Shavis Rollins, Dreamus Smith, Wendell Smallwood, DeKill Shorts, Kevin White, Hodari Christian, and Malik Greaves are already on campus and doing a good job for us right now. So we're treating them just like we're treating everybody else that's been here, whether it's for a year or 3 years. So those guys are doing a good job. The thing about this class that stands out to me probably a little bit more than anything is we got these. We went to 15 different states to get these guys. You know, if you look at what happened last year, it was you know, the surrounding states and down south a lot. One of the things that we wanted to focus on a little bit this year was just trying to get some more guys from the surrounding states. You know, we got 4 kids out of Pennsylvania, both 2 from Western and 2 from Eastern Pennsylvania, 3 from New Jersey, 3 from Ohio, 3 from Georgia, 2 from Florida, and then 1 each from the states of West Virginia, Texas, Mississippi, California, Delaware, Kansas, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Maryland. That's a lot of travel time, and it's not easy to get anywhere, you know, so these coaches have been doing a heck of a job of, you know, we'd come back for recruiting weekends, and then Sunday we'd hit the road and be traveling all over the country. And, you know, you get a kid from, you know, from like a Devontae Henry from who's from Oklahoma but out in Arizona. I mean, that's a lot of trips out that way to be able to go out and get those things. So it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of money. Truly appreciate the job that the guys did and the support that we have from the administration from a recruiting standpoint to be able to get out there and make this happen. From a booster club standpoint, you know, the 1100 club is important to us because it takes a lot of time and money to be able to get to all these places to be able to fill your class out. So, you know, just excited about all that. So, as far as specifically, you know, as far as what we're looking for, we made a strong emphasis defensively of getting guys that can rush the passer, you know, and you know, everybody was like, your woes defensively were pass defense. You better go out there and you better sign as many corners as you possibly can. Well, that's a very uneducated statement. You know, you better find D linemen to be able to rush the passer. Well, that's an uneducated statement as well. What we really wanted to do, which was something that was deficient with what we were doing last year defensively, And we also lost Josh Francis and Terrence Garvin to graduation. I mean, we weren't very deep at those positions at all, and they're gone. So that was a need. And when you add guys like Brandon Golston from Georgia Military, mentioned Devontae Henry from Arizona Western, Dontrell Hyman, who Coach Mitchell got out of Mississippi. These guys are pass rushers. They're long. They're able to get to the quarterback. Marvin Gross from over at Dunbar, can rush the passer. Outside linebacker type guys, even along the lines of Jeremy Tyler from Atlanta, Isaac McDaniel from down in South Florida. These are safety type bodies that are going to be tremendous, and from a nickel standpoint, that is something that was what we're after defensively, and I think we handled all those needs. Don't want to leave out Al Rashid, who's from New Jersey. Physically, he's probably as dynamic as we've seen. Would probably stand. If you put him with our whole team right now, you wouldn't be able to tell that he was a new kid. He's physically pretty good. From a special team standpoint, we wanted to get out, and Coach DeForest did a great job of identifying Nick O'Toole, who's a junior college kid out of California, who's his upside is unbelievable. I mean, he's a big 6'3", 6'4" kid that has game experience, that will be able to come in, and with Coach DeForest being able to work with them, that gives us a scholarship punter in addition to Josh Lambert, who redshirted last year as a kicker, and John DePalm as a deep snapper. So we got 3 guys on scholarship that we feel good about, not only next year, but they're all young and will be able to help us for years to come. Offensively, ended up getting 13 guys. The biggest thing offensively, running back, last year we just had some problems from a depth standpoint, as we all know. So being able to add Dreamus Smith and Wendell Smallwood and Eli Wellman, that's going to give us a tremendous amount of depth at that position. Then you obviously throw in Dustin Garrison, with Bowie and Clay. We got some bodies. We got more bodies at that position that we've had since we've been here. So feel good about that. From an offensive line standpoint, excited about getting those guys in here. Marcel Lazard, Tyler Tezano, Stone Underwood, and Grant Lingelfelter. Just, from an O-line standpoint, if you're not adding 4 to 5 a year, then from a depth standpoint, it's going to end up catching up to you. So having a lot of those guys be able to come in to give us, I think, what makes 15 bodies on the offensive line right now. Coach Biedenbaugh's yelling at me in the back there because he felt like we should add 3 or 4 more. Never can have enough offensive line, but I like where we're at from a depth standpoint. We've got to establish some starters there, which is what spring practice is all about. But probably the biggest need offensively is just playmakers on offense. When you lose, all your production and a receiver standpoint with Tavon and Stedman and JD, I mean, you better go out and you better get some guys that have that kind of ability. And, I think we did that with adding 5 guys. You got 3 junior college players. Kevin White's already on campus, and he's a grown man. Look forward to coaching him. DeKeel Shorts is on campus, and he's a grown man. Is adjusting to college quickly. And then the new guys, which are all, I don't want to place them in the Tavon Stedman category, but they're 5'8", 5'9", 5'10" guys that have just a tremendous amount of twitch. Mario Alford, looking at tape, is dynamic as I've seen. It just flat out can run. Ronald Carswell can run away from people. And then the last guy that we ended up getting here is Shelton Gibson, who on tape is extremely, extremely talented and extremely hard to tackle. So you talk about adding 3 guys starting in June, that when we throw the ball to them, as you know that we're doing, we just get them the ball in space. They're able to make people miss and go score. So whether the current guys on campus right now can hold those guys off is going to be fun to watch in camp. We'll coach the guys that we have on campus right now, and then we'll be anxious to add these guys and throw them into the fold as far as being able to find out what we're going to line up for in September of 2013. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. I will open this up for some questions as far as some specifics, but that's just kind of my general thoughts. Ed, I know you're going to go ahead and go first.
Big group of junior college guys. If you could talk about that, the importance of bringing them in and how their experience already is going to help them transition in.
Yeah, it's something that we've talked about for quite a while. You know, and identifying those guys is not easy. You gotta spend a lot of time, you know, identifying the guys, making phone calls, and then going and seeing them and seeing if if they're your type of guys. You know, and you know, one thing that I've seen change in college football is the amount of junior college kids that are being recruited. You know, there's been in my years at Texas Tech and, you know, even Houston and Oklahoma State, I mean, it wouldn't be unlikely not to sign any junior college players. And if you look at what's happening this year, a lot of people are going after junior college players, and we went after a bunch and weren't able to get some of them, and then we're able to land 9, which is still a pretty good number. I don't think anybody would have been happy to add 25 of them, you know. So you got to identify some guys, but that you have needs for, and you don't want to bring guys in that you don't have a need for them. And we got a need for those guys that, you know, we felt like at running back to get a guy that's experienced, seasoned as Dreamus, and then from a receiver standpoint, obviously we got zero production coming back, so we needed to add. I mean, the oldest guy on our receiving core right now is Kevin White. I mean, you know, other than that, we got a bunch of freshmen and sophomores that are going to be out there, so it adds experience there. Stone Underwood, we have a need at center. He's a guy that's a nasty guy that has played a lot of football here in the last 2 years. So, you know, and then like I mentioned, defensively, we needed pass rushers, and to get some grown men. You know, these guys are 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", that physically will be able to, you know, be able to compete in the Big 12. So those guys need to come in and play right away. Otherwise, we wouldn't have went the junior college route.
Your offensive line recruits, you have some needs at tackle. Did you look at some longer guys? I know it's sort of something Coach Beebo likes is longer guys, but did you have to get some tackles in this class?
Well, you know, probably the more important from a game-ready standpoint was interior guys. I mean, we lost 4 of our top 5 inside guys, right? So, you know, from a tackle standpoint, having basically our starters coming back. You know, you got Spain coming back, you got Fight coming back. Eggers played tackle. Mark Glowinski redshirted. You know, so we felt better about the returning guys coming back at tackle. You know, so we wanted to add some game-ready guys, and Stone should be game-ready, and Tyler should be game-ready. Tyler Tesno is a physical, thick kid. I know he's a high school guy, and you can't count on high school guys to come in and play on the O-line. But from a physical standpoint, he could potentially be ready. Marcel Lazard is an enormous person. And, you know, Grant Lingelfelter is a guy that's going to be, I mean, he's 6'5", and he's going to grow into his body. So there's 2 potential tackles for the future. You feel, I mean, you're campaigning for Bill over here. I mean, he wanted 4 or 5 more scholarships. So it's.
Safeties and linebackers that could potentially move other places. When they come in the fall, how quickly do you, or what process do you have to go through to identify, hey, this guy might be inside, outside buck, star, move around, how especially for the JUCOs?
Yeah, you don't, I mean, their bodies are changing too. You know, Devontae Henry's 205, 210 pounds right now. I mean, you know, what's he going to be like in 2 years? I mean, the sky's the limit for a guy like that. That all those body types, all those tall, long, lean body types, I mean, you don't know what they're going to end up being, whether they're high school guys, whether they're junior college guys. You don't know how they're going to keep maturing. So, you know, you just try to add as many bodies as you can. You let nature take its course. You let them lift and eat and get big and mature and grow older, and you never know where they're going to end up. You know, your goal eventually is just to get your best players out there. But, you know, being in the Big 12, knowing what defenses do against us offensively, you're looking at a lot of nickel and a lot of dime packages going in. So our base defense might not have, you know, a ton of those lighter guys out there at times. It just depends on what they're facing, you know. But you're always going to be facing a bunch of pass situations, regardless of who you play. And then in the Big 12, you may be playing against that type of an offense 66% of the time, to where you need a bunch of guys that can rush the passer and move guys down and play them at end, or, you know, or move safeties down and play them at outside linebacker. I mean, there's a lot of those situations, and you know, you just got to identify what they do best and who the best guys are and put them out there.
Not to discount the role your your previous assistants played in the recruiting process, but the newer guys who did come in at a pretty pivotal time for you. Can you talk about them and kind of the role they played throughout?
Well, there's you know, you always take into consideration what guys bring to the table from a recruiting standpoint, from a geography standpoint. That's half the job, you know, and all these guys do a great job of coaching in, you know, and getting out there recruiting. So in identifying what we needed to have happen, I mean, that was part of the reason why some of these guys were hired. I mean, we know Tony Gibson's a tremendous recruiter, and he's got tremendous ties, and not only the Pennsylvania area, but also across the country. And you know, Lonnie Galloway's done some great things for West Virginia. You know, already recruited some guys, and will pay dividends in years down the road. And you know, Brian Mitchell's a guy that I've seen recruit, and I was able to get in there with some of the connections that he's had and make a little bit of a difference as well. But you know, those guys, in addition to all the rest of the guys that we got here, are going to identify, you know, what areas they're going to be in, which we'll talk later about that, and be able to get in. And 2014 recruiting starts basically today. These guys have been on the phone with a bunch of prospects in 2014, and I know everybody thinks we take a couple weeks off after signing day's over, but you know, the recruiting thing never ends. So they've already been on the phone with a bunch of 2014 recruits, and we'll get started on that, you know, probably going into the night tonight.
Are there a couple more players you could add to this class, or everybody in that list is everybody that's coming?
Well, it depends how things shake out. You know, we're still actively pursuing a couple of guys for a variety of reasons. You know, you guys know, unless they're signed up, I can't talk about any of that. So we're still actively recruiting a couple of guys, and still have a couple of spots available, whether we fill those with current guys that we're recruiting, or wait and see what shakes out. You know, after signing day, things shake out, and we might identify a couple other guys that we want to bring on board. We might want to bring a couple of transfer guys on board. I mean, there's a couple of spots that we have out there to be able to fill. We'll evaluate that as a staff and make the best decisions possible.
What are your numbers right now? How many of the guys that were in early count towards last year, how many spaces do you have left right now?
I think three went back. I'd have to look at it for sure. I know at one point our target was about 27, 28, somewhere in there. So three guys go back. You know, we've had a couple of guys leave the program scholarship-wise. You know, Marge has transferred. Troy Gloucester has decided to graduate early, which opened up a couple of spots. But we're really still at that point where it's a little bit more important to hit your initials than it is, you know, overall hitting the 85. We're not going to hit our 85, and it's because of the initials is the reason why. So I think we're one more this recruiting class. We got to get all these guys qualified, get them in here, and then we don't have many seniors for next year. You know, so you don't want to just, you know, fill up just to fill up. You want to be able to get the best quality people in here to be able to, you know, have guys on your roster that can win your football games. So it's going to take one more before we really truly max out to where we're at that 85 number prior to hitting our initial number. So this year it's about initials. Next year it's about hitting the 85.
With the way junior college recruiting has evolved, is that something you guys are going to look at on an annual basis to try to get more guys moving forward?
Yeah, it's about getting the best guys. I don't think next year it's going to be as important. And again, you know, once recruiting day's over, you get focusing on your current 2013 team. You know, recruiting's important. It's our lifeline to what we do. You know, but player development's pretty daggone important too. I mean, you got to make sure that you're getting these guys buying into the program, and you know, and getting better on a daily basis when it comes to how they're acting socially. You know, how they're doing academically, you know, how they're doing athletically, making sure they're doing everything that they can be doing to be getting bigger, faster, stronger, and smarter every single day. You know, so that's probably a little bit, at the end of the day, it's a little bit more important than what the actual recruiting is. You know, so we'll address that. That's a year-to-year thing.
Trying to determine if players have the ability to do those other things just on the field. How does that impact how you evaluate recruits? I mean, everyone watches film. What do you and your staff try to do to see if they've got that drive, that determination, all those other things you're talking about?
Well, there's only so much time you can spend with them. I mean, you can call them, and maybe they do or maybe they don't answer. I mean, you go see them a couple times. I mean, you do your best. I mean, you try to figure out. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just getting guys that want to be here more than anything. And that's you spend time with them. You can't sit there and obsess over why kids make decisions to go somewhere else. I mean, you get guys that want to be on your team, and then when you get them here, you try to get them better, and you try to get to know them, and you make sure that the parents at home can call and check on them and feel good about that relationship. So, that's one thing I think this staff's done a great job of. We've identified who wants to be here, and these guys that signed today are all guys that want to be here, and we're gonna coach the heck out of them. We're not gonna worry about the guys that didn't want to come here for a variety of reasons. Because there's all kinds of reasons why guys don't go to specific schools. We can elaborate on that, but it's just the way it is. We'll coach up the guys we want because they want to be here. Probably the biggest thing.
And with regard to the 15 states, was that an effort to kind of go out and plant seeds and grow eventually, or is that just where your best guys ended up being that widespread?
Yeah, it's junior college has had something to do with that. We don't actively recruit North Carolina, South Carolina, although we got in there in the past. Mississippi. I mean, those are even Alabama a little bit. Those guys surfaced because of the junior colleges that we were recruiting. California, the one came from California, one came from Kansas. We wanted to really actively get into Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Virginia, and then we're going to get into Georgia a lot more. Obviously, we're going to be in Florida a lot. We're going to spot Texas a good bit. So, our database will grow tremendously from basically today through the end of spring into summer, and then at some point you got to narrow it down for specific reasons, going back to identifying why people don't want to. What people want to get recruited as, and for the reasons they want to get recruited for. And, if it happens to get narrowed down into 5 states next year, then so be it. But we're not going to be restricted geographically. We're going to go wherever we need to go to get guys that want to be here.
Anyone on this list make you sweat here in the 11th hour or anything that you weren't sure if they were going to sign?
Yeah, 25 of them. No, the 7 that were early enrolled, I mean, we felt pretty good about those guys heading into today. We worked those 7 guys out yesterday, and then the other, 18 guys that signed today. I mean, you never know. I mean, we talked to them all. We talked to all 18 of them yesterday. We talked to all 18 of them again today. There's probably going to be a certain amount of red buttoning these guys here for the next few weeks. We're tired of talking to them, and they're tired of talking to us. So I'm glad it worked out the way it did.
Can you kind of describe what this day is like for you guys as coaches? As you said, you talk to them, these players, all the way up to and including today, and then you sit around a fax machine and wait to see the letters. What's this day like for you guys? Is it exciting, fun, tense, nervous?
Yeah, it's all of the above. I think it's still fun. I mean, they call one last time and they say it's in and you're official, and it's good to put closure to it. It's really good to put closure to it. The hardest 48 hours as a coach is Monday, Tuesday before signing day. I mean, because there's nothing you can do. It's over. You think you got your numbers hit. You don't know if they're going to send it back or not, but we did a heck of a job. I think this staff did a heck of a job of identifying the guys that wanted to be here, and we put a list together last night of 18 people, that we thought were going to sign, and all 18 of them signed. So I can assure you this staff didn't lose sight of the ones that didn't. Again, people go to different schools for different reasons, and it's hard to identify all those. But once you identify them, you figure out who your guys are, and you roll with it. So there's some relief to it, and there's some satisfaction to it, and some closure to it, which I think we all look forward to.
You're going to lose somebody academically, or how do you feel overall about the 25 guys? Are there many that you're going to have to sweat this summer?
there's always guys that you got to keep your eye on. You know, I don't, you know, Coach Dorchester can probably give you a specific percentage. I know there's a high percentage of them that are already qualified. It's not 100. You know, so there's a handful of guys that we will continue to monitor. You know, we will get you know, updates on them from their counselors. You know, these guys will be in touch with their counselors and their parents, and we'll get updated SAT scores and, you know, and specific updates on that. So, yeah, there's still several of them that we'll have to monitor very closely. All right, you got it. Appreciate it, guys. We've got the assistant coaches here. We'll be scattered around the room if you want to get with some of these guys. Thanks.
Well, there he is, WVU head coach Dana Holgerson, completing his press conference on this year's recruiting class from just alongside of the team room. Should also note here that over the last couple of hours, now I guess 2.5 hours we've been on the air, you may have heard some construction sounds going on in the background. That is the sound of the WVU weight room being literally overhauled. We're joined now by WVU Athletic Director Oliver Luck, and I know, Oliver, that was one of the things that was a must-do in this off-season. And you take a look there, and we'll try to get maybe a picture of that later on the website here, but it is stones, rocks, and bare walls right there.
They're uncovering pavement that we haven't seen since 1980, which is kind of nice. But yeah, a complete redo of the weight room. You know, we're focused on the things right now that really matter in terms of the team and preparation for the team, whether that's weight room, meeting rooms, you know, where the guys spend the majority of their time. And really nothing becomes more important in an off-season than the weight room. So what we're going to do is really very impressive down there, and I think when folks see the finished product, they'll be very happy with the steps we've taken to really make our program as good as it can be.
All right, right now let's take a look at this WVU recruiting class that Dana Holgerson has just commented upon. 25 total players, ranging from junior college players, guys, 7 of those who have already enrolled here and are at WVU, to some players that will be coming, student athletes that will be coming in the coming months. And I know that one guy that you're particularly happy to see on that list, Oliver, is Elijah Wellman from here in the state of West Virginia.
Well, you know, we're the flagship school of the state. I think it's important that we get every D1 talent kid out of the state, and that's not always the case, as we know. But it's good to see Elijah, you know, on board as a West Virginia kid. Last year we didn't have any recruits from the state. I think we go back to Chad Clay from Charleston, what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, Cody Clay.
Cody Clay, a couple of years ago. So it's just nice to see Elijah on board, because ultimately we want to make sure that the kids who grew up in the state, watching the Mountaineers play from day one, and are good enough, of course, to play Division I, can help us win games. So I'm very happy for Elijah. It's a good class. It's some real talented kids. What strikes me, Tony, as I look at the list, is just the variety of states we have. I think I counted up 16 different states. Mm-hmm. That's a little bit skewed because of the junior college kids who come from all over the place. But it shows you, I think, with the Big 12, what we have to do in terms of our geographical reach to really get the kind of kids we need to be competitive.
Yeah, and Oliver, talking about, first of all, Elijah Wellman, he's a kid that he can come from West Virginia or the Yukon, that kind of a hard-nosed kid. You're very happy to get him in here, but it's a mixed, or it's an added blessing that he's from West Virginia. But those 15, 16 states that we've drawn these kids from, you were part of this transition. Out of the Signetti days, into the Coach Nealon days, going from from a regional brand to a national brand. And it's really been built on over the last 30 years. Shot up several notches with the Big 12. Talk about the Flying WV logo in general as a national brand, and that's how that's going to help this football program moving forward as a member of the Big 12 Conference.
Well, you know, I think ultimately what we have to do is increase our footprint, right, when it comes to recruiting. There's no question that the Flying WV is recognized around the country due to all the great players, great coaches, big games, BCS victories we've had over the years. So I think we've got certainly a presence with high school coaches around the country. We need to really figure out where our sweet spot is. You know, we've known for years the sweet spot's been Florida in many cases. Dana mentioned that we're getting a few kids out of Texas now. Obviously the junior college element to all this is a little bit different than it was certainly 10, 15 years ago, and that's going to continue to grow. What's really helped us, though, if we think about it, is the exposure that the program is getting right now, and I include the men's basketball program in this on Fox and ESPN. Our television package, you know the details, Tony, 19 broadcasts this year for men's basketball. That helps. When kids are sitting around at home, football players watching a basketball game, they come back maybe from their own high school basketball game, and they see the Mountaineers on, if we're playing Texas or Oklahoma State or whoever it may be. That's all very helpful. So it's all sort of part of what we need to do to sort of increase that brand profile, sharpen that brand profile, make folks more aware of us so that we do, in fact, have an opportunity to walk into a home at a junior college, you know, in Mississippi or Kansas or Arizona or Carolinas, where we haven't really spent a lot of time, as Dana mentioned. So that's evidence, I think, even today, of the fact that we've moved up a little bit in terms of our profile around the country.
Oliver, as we go through this first season in the Big 12 Conference, you're recently back from the athletic directors meetings in the Big 12 Conference. You mentioned footprint in regard to recruiting. Let's talk footprint in regard to the Big 12 Conference. The volcano continues to kind of simmer. It's not exploding right now, but are we to think, and that was one of the subjects that you guys talked about, are we to think that we will see continued movement before this finally settles?
I think there's additional movement to come. Not quite sure where it's all going to start and where it's going to end in terms of the next phase, but I do think there's still a lot of uncertainty as I talk to my colleagues, both within the conference as well as outside the conference. So, and ultimately, I think that the Big 12 folks realize we've got a great conference with great programs, but quite honestly, we're only 10.
Right.
And there are other conferences. You can do the math. We can all do the math. You know, the Big Ten's expanding by adding Maryland and Rutgers, and certainly the ACC's expanded with their 14 plus Notre Dame. So we've got to be very cognizant that we don't allow to happen to the Big Ten what quite honestly happened to the Big East, where we only had 8 teams. And if one team sort of peels off, all of a sudden you're really in some trouble. So I think there's still things that could happen. We're certainly, you know, on the guard, if you will, watching, monitoring the landscape. Our commissioner is a very smart guy who knows what's going on and has a great relationship with the other power conference commissioners. So we're happy where we are right now, but I don't think any of us believes that it's over in terms of all the movement.
Do you agree with the thought that the outcome of the legal matter that's going on between the ACC and the University of Maryland will be the catalyst as to what eventually happens, whether expansion at a higher rate or settling?
I agree that the exit fee that's ultimately agreed upon could be a catalyst, depending on the size. If it's a steep number of 40 or 50 million, that's a pretty strong deterrent. If it's 15 or so, sort of what we ended up ultimately paying, or 20 maybe in that ballpark, then there could be some discussion about that. So there's lots of different things that can happen. It's very difficult to predict because, as you all know, it's so many different things can play into this decision. But I think there is still some movement to come.
How important do you think when it does come? Let's just be hypothetical here, and that's what we're doing. When you sit down with your fellow athletic directors in the league, we're the only team in the Eastern time zone. Do you say, hey guys, when we do, and if it does, hypothetically, do we need some partners in the Eastern time zone? Do you think that's important?
I think it's important. I think that we've seen as we go through this first year that there is some travel. In fact, it was funny. Texas, as you know, couldn't get out after the Monday game because of the very rough weather. And I was down at the waterfront Tuesday morning with some guys for breakfast and saw the Texas team, talked to Rick Barnes. I said, Rick, so now you know what it's like. It's tough to get back to Austin. Your kid's probably going to miss most of the classes on Tuesday, et cetera. And we had a little joke about the travel. So that is a little bit of an issue. So clearly, I think we would favor any folks on this side of the Mississippi because it would help us somewhat with our travel. We're still going to have to make those trips, out to Big 12 country, and they're going to have to come here. And none of our coaches is using that as an excuse for any sort of performance-related issues, but it is a reality.
Well, sticking to the topic of, as Tony alluded to, the potential volcanic activity with this conference expansion. It's certainly nice to know, as a West Virginia fan, we're probably no longer in that valley waiting to get liquefied by the lava as much as we're looking from the ridge high above. But let's go back to the branding. We need to find niches. Maryland, Ohio, Virginia, Pennsylvania is the easternmost team in a very southwestern conference. Let's talk about moving forward our presence in that Baltimore, D.C. area. We've had that recently. We're going to continue having it moving forward. Talk about how much that means to this brand.
Well, that's a huge, urban area for us, not just for student athletes, but for our students as well. A lot of alumni down there. We do a lot of fundraising down there. You know how important that Maryland series is to us. I think for the next, I don't know what it is, next 6 years we'll be playing 5 games in the Maryland, D.C. area, whether it's, the Terps in Baltimore or the Terps in College Park or BYU at FedEx Field. So we'll continue to schedule that. In fact, I ran into Kevin Anderson, the Maryland AD, this past weekend, and we talked about how important Maryland is for us, and I think he agrees as well because of the rivalry that his folks feel, vis-a-vis the Mountaineers. So it's important to do more. We probably need to play some basketball games down there, to be very honest with you. Hugs and I have talked briefly about that. I'm not sure if it's a Maryland series or if it's a Georgetown series or if we look at creating a one-off series maybe at the arena, the Verizon Center down there in D.C. So there's some options, but it's clearly a very important space for us. Arguably Pittsburgh, and then you talk about the Baltimore, D.C. marketplace. Those may be the 2 most important urban areas because they're so close and there's some pretty good talent in those markets for us.
Oliver, thanks so much for being with us here this afternoon.
My pleasure.
How many stars were next to your name back on that recruiting class?
Well, the great thing was there was no internet, there were no stars. When you showed up as a freshman, you didn't know who your new teammates were. They didn't know you, you didn't know them, until the first day of practice. Then you found out if you could play or not. That's all that mattered.
Amazing,
That's all that mattered, yeah. Changed a lot.
How it's changed. These guys know each other. They text each other. They tweet to each other. Whole different world.
That's right. No, it's great. And the one thing I will say, this is a great day, not just for the football program, but to see our signees and really all the kids around the country make that critical decision to accept a scholarship, to play Division I football, to get a college education. It's really it's one of the best things we do in American society, and this is always a very refreshing day, I think, for all of us because we see these young kids that really make some good decisions.
Absolutely. Their lives are changed forever, one way or the other, as they sign that line. Thanks so much for being with us, Oliver.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jed. Thanks.
That'll conclude our coverage here at WVUsports.com. Thanks so much for being with us. As we go away, we'll take one last look at that list of 25 recruits that West Virginia has signed today. Continued coverage, continued biographical information available to you on this site at WVUsports.com, including their video highlights. We'd like to thank our entire crew from the Mountaineer Sports Network who have put the last, what do we got here? 3:43. We've been on the air since 1 o'clock. A mini telethon, about 2 hours and 45 minutes. We thank everyone for tuning in, and hopefully we'll do it again this time next year. For Jed Drenning, I'm Tony Caridi. This presentation brought to you by Northeast Natural Energy. Thanks for being with us here on WVUsports.com.